This is The Gorge. It's a podcast where my friend Sarah and I gorge ourselves on a topic.
The Gorge is brought to you by Patreon. That's patreon.com/thegorge, where for just $5 a month you gain access to not one, but two entire podcasts. $5 gets you Takeout, a monthly commentary track where Ben and I decide we don't feel like putting in the effort to play anything, so instead we're just gonna talk over somebody else doing something. And $2, only $2, gets you That's Hell You're Walking Into, a monthly series where Ben, mostly what happens is that everybody tells us to pick waiver for our 5-star pick ticket in FGO, and then we don't. Well, I think Ben did.
I did.
I picked Mordred because I didn't have a Mordred yet, and Ben has one.
I already have one, yeah.
Because you rolled one.
I got one out of nowhere.
The point is, it's a monthly series where Ben asks me questions about Fate Stay Night, Fate Grand Order, and sometimes accidentally the extended Nasuverse, and I do my damnedest to answer it, often to disastrous results. It's a blast. So if you think that sounds fun, head on over to patreon.com/thegorgekickin. However much you can afford. We appreciate every donation from $2 to $10. And thanks.
PSA, don't forget to get that servant to 5.
That's right.
Ascend them once?
Once.
Yes.
And then you get to keep them.
Otherwise, they'll go away forever.
You have 2 months. It's not hard.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's really not hard. But just don't forget to do that, because you'll be very sad if you do. Thank you to Palm of Power, JT, Steel Condor, Nihar Bot, Red Lantern Reviews, Holy Star 64, Patrick Perez, Roddy 1/2, Saturn. Hey, there you are. You're here.
Who?
It's you.
Don't worry about it.
You're here. Alice Marks, Shia, Magus, Jack, Liam Lane, and that other one dude.
Thank you all. That being said, I don't know if you've noticed, we have some guests with us.
We do.
Today.
If you read the episode description, you'll see that we have guests.
People read?
Sometimes.
No.
Oh, okay.
I put jokes in the description, so I hope you read them.
Oh no!
There's goofs in there.
That's how a lot of people are learning. There's jokes in the description, Ben.
I spend a lot of time thinking of title cards and then making Sarah make them.
Correct.
It takes a lot of effort to delegate that work.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, I edit the podcast and sync up all of the audio and write the descriptions and host it on the site and pay for the subscription fee. And Sarah opens up Photoshop for 3 minutes.
That sounds like an equivalent amount of labor.
It's an equivalent amount of labor, absolutely. Learning. Look, you are not getting my time. You're getting the amount of time it took me to learn how to use the pen tool in Adobe Photoshop. You should be grateful for that. Most people don't. So, the point is, hey, we're doing a Shadowbringers episode. It's finally here, people.
It is.
After 5.5 years of certain people on the internet constantly telling me, Sarah, play Final Fantasy XIV. We played Final Fantasy XIV. You're welcome. And I finished the story of Final Fantasy XIV as it currently exists. Ben is getting there.
Yeah.
But we did finish Shadowbringers, and Shadowbringers is a beast, which means it requires more than just the two of us. It requires some additional lunatics. So, first off, we have Saturn.
Hi, I'm Saturn, returning back from the war, as it were. You may have heard me here before. They, them. I picked Tamamo no Mae for my 5-star. And also, I didn't realize until recently that I was in a past life in a polycule with 2 ancient wizards. But that's been fun figuring out. But you know,
don't worry about it.
And we also have with us, after a long time, we have our good friend Oatsy.
Hi, everybody. First time caller, long time listener. Pronouns she, her. You've probably heard me from such wonderful episodes as the time we went to Nuka World. And for my servant, I picked Arturia because it's been like 6 years and I still haven't gotten her.
That's totally fair.
That's
you know
legit.
what? Get the mascot character. You're absolutely fine.
Well, I only have Saber Lily, and that was because she's free.
You now
still
have
got
Mordred.
Saber.
You now have a Mordred, though. So.
True enough.
Yeah.
I also
But
have a
that's
Mordred.
not an Artoria. That's
Yeah,
the
but it's
spawn
just-
of Artoria.
That's Artoria's little baby son.
Yeah, and he's, looks just like Artoria, so it's fine. It counts, sort of. Don't worry about him.
I also got Jean Alter, which is what happens when you take a pair of scissors to a pair of Jeans.
Oh, we're off to a great start.
I said I wouldn't be jealous. Let's
Let's just make peace with it. Nobody's jealous.
So
Anyway,
Shadowbringers.
The
there's
Shadowbringers.
Yeah, that's your teaser for Hell You're Walking Into, which Oats and I notably are not on. But
yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give it time.
Shadowbringers, though.
How do we even begin to talk? Shadowbringers is good. That's the beginning of how we talk about Shadowbringers.
So I took notes like I usually do because I have a memory like a leaky faucet.
Mm-hmm.
So the top of my notes here is that this is just a regular JRPG, like an isolated JRPG.
Correct.
You could have just put Shadowbringers out as its own thing, and it would have been fine.
It would have been.
It is a friend of the show, Rosie, has just put it in these words, so I will attribute them to her. But it is an interesting situation where you go from the most recent FF14 expansion prior to this, Stormblood, where you're doing a bunch of revolutionary politics and also being an accessory to neoliberal colonialism in a way that I think a lot of players, especially now, just kind of feel bad about. And then you throw wide the gates, and then you were immediately like, hey, what if we called you the Warrior of Darkness, like you were a bad guy, but this was otherwise just the most straight-laced possible classic JRPG?
It is very much like a really good send-up to like the first 3 or 4 Final Fantasies by just being the forces of good against the forces of evil, light versus darkness, except you're on the dark side.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What if there were a bunch of monsters and there was a big evil guy who cackled and made plans and rubbed his hands together about how evil he was, and you had to go stop him?
And
Except that guy was the President of the United States of America and also the Pope. And he has a bunch of giant lion beasts arrayed by him that are all anointed by the light of Christ.
correct.
And to save the world, you have to butcher them all.
We are back to the old JRPG thing of what if the church evil though?
What if the church is bad because they won't let you fuck dragons?
Dragons. That's Heaven's Word.
We're back to Heaven's Word. Except these aren't as explicitly Catholic as Heaven's Word is. They're more just like Renaissance era.
I don't know, but like all your monsters are like explicitly angelic because they're all named after forgiven sins, and they're like white and gold and have big
but like
feathers and
or
stuff
they
like
have
that.
and they have like the Greek concepts of love for names. Like one of them is
Also,
named like Vilios.
I will say the one thing that is explicitly Catholic, which is just throwing forward a little bit. The light crystals that are all shooting out of Mount Golg in that big radiant halo are explicitly styled after Catholic altar sculpture.
Yeah.
so, but it's more Catholic aesthetic than it is Heaven's Word, which is just the Catholic Church.
Correct.
They took the Catholic religion out of the Catholic Church for Heaven's Word, and they just made it about how the church sucks, so they won't let you fuck dragons. But in this one, they're like, no, actually, we have some issues with Catholicism too here.
Yeah, we have some issues with it's Evangelion style. We're just gonna jack these aesthetics.
Yeah,
I was gonna say it's like they. For Heaven's Word, they just made like Catholicism just kind of straight. They added a little bit of Anne Orlando for the aesthetic, but for the most part, it is very much like a very Germanic city. No frills or anything. And you're like wondering where did all the like real imagery go? Where's the aesthetic? And they just threw it all in Shadowbringers without the Catholicism.
Masco Ishikawa kicked down the door and was like, "Have you heard of golden spiky halos?"
Hell yeah!
Everything was made of marble and gold.
Sign me up.
I'm
Natsuko
gonna wait
Ishikawa,
for 3 days writing this script.
Natsuko Ishikawa just bursts in the room yelling this, and it's like inside Yoshida's Yoshi-P's house, and it's like at 3 a.m. and he's just rubbing the sleep out of his eyes, like, yes, you've told me.
And then
Go home.
and then Yoshi-P is like, wait, I need to consult the elders. And he turns to Tetsuya Nomura and he's like, yep, sounds good to me.
Tetsuya Nomura's like, I can accept this, but there needs to be a goth girl with a hime cut. I will not relent on this.
Also, what are you doing in my room, Tetsuya Nomura?
No, Nomura just salt-based sprinkles his aesthetic and he just sprinkles themes all over. Like, there we go, we're done.
Just dusts his hands off and walks away until the Eden raids, where they're like, we need a goth girl with a hime cut, Nomura-san.
I've trained my whole life for this.
It is amazing. The other thing I'll say about this is very classic Final Fantasy, like 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, everyone, if anyone listening to this who doesn't like Kingdom Hearts but does like Shadowbringers, you like Kingdom Hearts.
It's
Damn,
true.
the gauntlet is
Damn,
thrown down. Also, if you say you don't like Destiny 2, but you like Shadowbringers, you probably like Destiny 2, at least to a certain point.
We're all just...
The amount of, it's like, I wanted Kingdom Hearts without Disney. That's Shadowbringers.
Just go play Final Fantasy 14. You did it. Congratulations.
Just go play Final Fantasy 14 for about 300 to 400 hours until you get to the part that's Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
It's great. Oh, God. I love playing a video game for so long to get to the good part, except actually, the good part was a while ago, and the roller coaster hasn't stopped. It just kind of keeps going up and up, and I'm getting worried because we've been going up for a really long time, and I feel like the G-forces that are going to be inflicted on me when we finally go down will kill me, like that euthanasia roller coaster, which is in fact the end of Shadowbringers, which we'll get there, so don't worry about
the
it.
zip line, Shadowbringers is the zip line designed to kill children.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're starting really, really high up, and I feel like no matter how much padding you put down there, I'm going to be turned into crunchy salsa.
This ain't looking good, Chief.
However, the experience of riding the child-killing zipline is a impossible thrill, which surely nothing in the world could equal. Which is why it's really appropriate. It turns you into salsa at the end of it because
great.
you get flung into a wall at 80 miles an hour.
The pile of mattresses that is the patch quest is not going to cut it.
In fact, the pile of mattresses that is the patch quest are full of glass. Oh no! So I guess we should probably try and rein this in a little. So like the first thing that comes to mind, I think I've said this multiple times, but the beginning of Shadowbringers, those vibes are immaculate, and like in a way I can't even express.
This is the highest praise I can give this game. First warping into the Shadowbringers, into the first, and getting to that field of like purple flowers, hit me the way getting to the Kingdom of Zeal hit me.
Yes, it is.
Because I told this story during the Chrono Trigger episode, which was years and years and years ago. But when my Chrono Trigger experience was playing it at my cousin's house when I was really little, and not getting very far because I wouldn't go over that often, but I would love to play Chrono Trigger. And I would start a new save file, and I'd get to about the end of the first visit to 2300 AD, and then I just wouldn't get any further because I'd run out of time, you know? I would get to wander around 65 million BC a bit, so I kind of get to know that a little bit, but I just didn't make a ton of progress. So it wasn't until later when I got the copy for myself and got to play it straight through that I realized there's this whole other era of the game that I just never got to.
Yeah.
And it just blew me away with these like immaculate like vibes and the music and the aesthetic and like the design, everyone's designs, and that's what it felt like, because you get so familiar with every location you go to in Eorzea, right? And you're going back and forth to a lot of these places, and you get intimately familiar with them because you're playing this for 300 hours,
right,
up until this point, and then finally the game is like, no, completely brand new area, like nothing else in the game.
Right.
There's a degree to which like it hits me in the same way that the Chimera Ant arc from Hunter x Hunter hits me, which is to say, it's something that is completely standalone, and to a certain extent, like it is the heart of the thing that it's a part of in a way where like everything feels like it was gearing up for you to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But also it's in a weird way it wouldn't work unless you had to go through so much other shit before that to then get to that heart.
Yeah,
because it does, like, even though it throws you into a place like, hey, this is a completely new place with all sorts of new characters and like a world that might not, cohere to your expectations, the narrative stuff that's happening in here does also like latch really hard onto even the early stuff that people thought was bad, and it's like, no, we're gonna make this important.
A thing that I also really like, hopping off of Ben, is it gives you this brand new thing that you've never really encountered before. This is all new, like utterly new, foreign and alien to you, but you are introduced with probably the strongest like bit of foreshadowing the game can give you. It gives you an anchor of familiarity by having the very first NPC being the very first NPC that you meet in Limsa, Ul'dah, or Gridania.
Yeah.
But his like first counterpart. You meet a shard of a person, and that gives you the idea that later on you might come across other such familiar yet alien people
or places.
As you realize, unspoken with some amount of dawning horror, that like, oh, the world of this is just a basically superimposed over our own. Like these geographies roughly align, and then just being like, oh fuck, oh no, this place got fucked real bad.
Because one of the first things that Shadowbringers does, especially depending on what order you do the beginning of Shadowbringers, we'll get to that, is it also immediately kills off that guy who helped you escape from Ul'dah in A Realm Reborn. That guy gets got. Like, he gets got super hard, and it's like, oh, right.
And he gets got, like, instantly.
Immediately, yeah.
You're like, oh, good, an anchor of familiarity. Oh, there he goes.
Oh, no! And now
it's also...
And you start just getting, like, that kind of itch. I don't know. Like, that itch at the back of your brain of, like, how, like, weird and wrong everything is. Especially because, like, it's a testament to, like, the really strong art design of Shadowbringers. That, like, it's daylight, but it's a weird, hazy, like, not natural daylight, and you can just tell without even being told, I suppose. You're like, oh, okay, this is, like, the light that is going on here has a weird, not sunlight quality to it, because it's everywhere, it's everywhere all at once. And, like, so you kind of have, like, this weird sensation, like, you're in somewhere very familiar where something has gone horribly wrong, and you are just trying to kind of grapple and make yourself familiar with that.
It's also very striking to me, because it is the first and only time that you're truly alone.
Oh yeah,
in this game, because even from the very beginning, you're introduced on a carriage ride. And the twins are right there with you. And when you finally get control of your character, you're in a big city. So, like, even before you meet, like, the Scions, before you start interacting with people, you're still with people.
Yeah.
It's still a populated world, as opposed to the vibe that you constantly get that the first is empty in the way a Fallout game is.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, you start up FF14 going like, okay, I'm in an MMO world. And then you get to Shadowbringers and like, oh, I'm now in a PS2 RPG world.
Yeah, actually.
And yeah.
Did I just see Yoko Taro's name on a title card? Uh-oh. Oh,
no.
No. Ruh-roh. Not like this.
This is a surprise name that'll come up later.
I would like to get off the ride now.
No.
I would like
yeah.
to get off Natsuko Ishikawa's wild ride very much. Thank you, please. No.
And because, every dungeon you've done, every boss you've fought has been with people.
Mm-hmm.
So you're never alone in this game until you very suddenly are.
Yeah, and it's like a very weird, kind of just disconcerting thing to have to like go to the Crystarium all by yourself, and you're like, oh, I have no idea where I am or really even what's going on.
Also, this is after, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
In your experience, what was several hours, what in a live player's experience was several months, of your Scion friends getting inexplicably put into unwakeable magical comas, one after the other, until it's just you and Tataru.
There is a very interesting thing that, I am only now experiencing now that I'm done with Endwalker, and I am living the hell of going through patch content coming out very slowly, is you don't realize, going through it in the moment, that somebody would just collapse, and then it would be 4 to 5 months before the next thing happens to let you know what's coming next, right?
In Thancred's case, it was a little over a year. I think a year and a month.
Oh, that's awful. Great.
God.
Wretched.
And they make you wait because he's one of the last people you end up picking up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was also one of the ones who was there for longest, which comes up a bit later.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one thing that's interesting to me about this is that I got to watch and this is kind of a weird thing that you can only do when the product is still in development.
Mm-hmm.
It's this kind of weird sensation where after the fact completely changes the context of it. So I watched the Shadowbringers trailer, right?
Yeah.
And you get to see everyone being really cool and their class changes and everything like that. The bit, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but the bit where Oriange calls Y'shtola Master Matoya ends up meaning nothing in the game.
Nothing.
Oh, I have a great one for you.
It was just to make the players at the time go, ooh, why is he calling her Master Matoya?
You're thinking, did Grandma turn into a hot cat girl too at 14?
So
No.
They actually do this in Heavens, where I feel like since most of you are you watched it and didn't really catch it because you ended up playing it so quickly afterwards that it came as kind of a blur.
Mm-hmm.
The Heavensward trailer does the exact same thing by having the final boss appear to be Hracefelger instead, and Nidhogg's on your side.
Oh, that's great.
Oh,
That's funny.
They're just faking you out constantly.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to that bit in Shadowbringers where it's they're just oh yeah, by the way, she's going by Master Matoya now because they have a weird thing about names.
Mm-hmm.
That's just normal.
That's just how it be.
Oh, okay.
That's just normal.
okay.
That's just the guise she has to take in this strange dark web society that lives in the woods.
I mean,
I do appreciate a good trailer live, though.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm saying is that pixies are real in the first, so it does make sense that they would do we have to hide our true name by using nicknames, sort of thing. You never know, because they're
If a
right
fairy
next
knows
to
your
each
true
other.
name, they can turn you into a bush.
Yeah,
forever.
I think they can just turn you into a bush anyways. Don't worry about it.
I guess the difference is if they know your name, they can turn you into a bush, but you remain conscious.
Oh no.
That's horrible.
I don't like thinking about that.
Jesus.
Yo, Angelo.
So how do we keep structuring this? So we
don't.
I was thinking
I think we can just try and do broad strokes along with the kind of direction of the story. So
I was gonna ask, how did y'all end up when it first started branching off? Who did you end up picking? I feel like is this the first time they did that, or was that in Stormblood?
it's in Stormblood.
Yeah.
It's actually in Heavensward as well, because you can either pick to go hang out with Emet-Selch or Toril
That's
first.
true. It is in Heavensward. Which
Oh,
is the one in
God.
Stormblood?
The Stormblood one is just you have 3 or 4 resistance people you can go help, and you
Oh yeah,
It's not
right. They did that in Ralgar. Yeah.
like everything in Stormblood. It's not nearly as interesting.
Yeah.
No, it's almost like they didn't even have to do it like that. But hey.
Don't worry
Or
about it.
Monago.
So I got both of the quests on my quest log, and then I glanced at the mini-map, and whichever one happened to be closer to me is the one I went to. So I ended up doing...
You did Alphino first.
I did Alphino first, yeah.
Okay, which is funny. I did Alizé first. Which
I say when I did it, I believe I went and did Alizé first as well, because Alizé is one of my favorite characters in the entire game. Well, obviously I'm going to go see Alizé.
Oh no, that was a mistake, as it turns out.
I ran to Alphino first because he was gone longer, and I wanted to check in on him.
Good point.
Now, see, I only started playing in 5.3, so for me, I also had the binge experience with the pre.
That makes sense.
Shadowbringer stuff.
And yeah, I went to Alizé first.
And
So remember when I said that, like, boy, Shadowbringers is a nightmare?
Boy.
Yeah, so you go to hang out with Alizé, and she's like, hey, what's up? I'm hanging at the hospice for people who are turning into angels. And they're like, oh, that's cool. And she's like, hey, also, I have this girlfriend. I'm like, oh, good for you, queen. Congrats. You're making the best of it. And then her hospice girlfriend gets stabbed and then turned into an angel.
In the most, probably one of the scare. So, people have said before that they use Hildebrand to test the face bones. Like, they use the Hildebrand quest line to see, like, what kind of weird shit they can do with all the face bones.
They used it to make the finger snap, which is a surprise tool that will help someone later.
Yeah.
They made a finger snap, but they were also like, oh, we can do some weird, fucked up stuff with these faces. What if we did some weird, fucked up stuff with these faces in one cutscene that's gonna haunt your dreams for the rest of your life? And it's like, oh, okay, I guess we can do that, or we could not. Oh,
it is rather amazing how they managed to make probably the goriest looking like horror scene on a T-rated game.
Oh yeah, not a speck of gore, and yet it's still just like it's a complete it's body horror nightmare shit.
It's white. Don't worry about it. They're exploding with holy goodness.
The power of creative cuts.
And we just imply a lot of things. And you have a spooky little child staring at her while it happens, and it's all wretched. And that does a great job of setting the tone for what you're about to go through.
Yeah.
Have fun, idiot. It's like, okay, I guess I am.
After you help Alizé just experience an absolute traumatic amount of horror, you're like, I'm going to go hang out with your brother instead, because maybe things are going more normal for him.
So I want to, before we move off that, I want to just talk about this, because the whole point of this podcast is to talk about how these things make us feel.
Sure.
And I went through some shit during Alizé's bit and during, like, most of Shadowbringers. To be very, very personal, I was going through a lot of stress and anxiety regarding death. That was unrelated to playing 14. It's just like, that's what my anxiety decided was like the next thing we're going to deal with. Like the next saga in my path of anxiety.
Yeah.
The next arc in the shonen manga of your anxiety.
Yeah. It was going to be like, hey, your final boss is going to be the ever-encroaching and approaching concept of dying. And the idea that, hey, what if when you die, your mind is trapped in a lifeless body that cannot move or receive any sort of outside input of any kind? What if that happens when you die? And then I played Shadowbringers.
They kept happening in Shadowbringers.
Oh no!
Not even necessarily to the people who get like light got it. There's also the pixies. It's really fucked up.
So this was kind of like a weird triggering experience for me.
I'm sorry.
Like I went through a lot of things where I'm like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore.
All my friends are bullying me and playing this video game that assaults my deepest fears.
Like, you go to an actual funeral at one point in Shadowbringers when you're hanging out with Y'shtola, and I'm like, hey, I don't want to be here anymore.
I need to lie down.
Yeah, you know.
And I got over it. I had a breakthrough with my therapist and whatnot, so everything was fine now.
Good.
But it's like, hey, do you want to confront the thing that you're trying to grapple with constantly? And I went, Not in a video game.
Too bad.
Natsuko Ishikawa was just hiding like a big dinner platter behind her. Like, are you sure?
She put interesting characters and fun gameplay underneath a box propped up by a string.
Mm-hmm. And then the box falls on you, and it's labeled fear of dying.
Yeah, and the box was labeled internal trauma.
Ishtola in her new outfit is there with the stick holding the box up like, you should come hang out with me under this box.
It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Everything will be okay. And then it very much wasn't okay for me.
It's great. Actually, that's like literally, I think that's basically what a Shadowbringers is about. Like, as like a whole overarching narrative, and it becomes really, really obvious once you get to Amarot. And it also kind of is a thing in Endwalker even more so, like, because Endwalker is just Shadowbringers too. We're not talking about that because Ben hasn't finished Endwalker yet, but you know, that is what Endwalker is. And Shadowbringers and Endwalker are both very concerned with like death and dying and doing the most you can with the fact that you are going to die. That like you are ultimately doomed, and like what you do with that and how you process it, or you don't process it in one very specific character's case.
If you spend 10,000 years aggressively not processing it.
Yeah, you know, it's fine.
You try to process it once, like 100 or 200 years ago, and then that process breaks down like 20 years in, and they're just like, no, I have decided I will refuse to process this.
Never
forever.
mind. We're not
I will
processing.
learn nothing.
I'm not learning anything. I'm not getting over it. Fuck you.
No, it's the mortals who are wrong.
This is a very weirdly specific relative that Ishikawa had to suffer through living with.
Sarah,
clearly had trauma over.
Can you make that the title card? Can you make it Emet-Selch being like, am I so out of touch? No, it's the Warriors of Darkness who are wrong.
Yeah, that's the title card. Absolutely.
Natsuko Ishikawa was like, yeah, I had this relative who's, you know, like, really just didn't want to let anything go. He was alive for 12,000 years, and he just wouldn't shut the fuck up about how cool things were 12,000 years ago.
How good things used to be.
You could absolutely see like Ishikawa having like a Tojo era grandparent that she was really close to. It would probably be exactly like Emet-Selch.
And yeah, that's like literally what Shadowbringers is about. Like, what happens when you refuse to let go, or when you refuse to like process it. Like, if you just decide like, no, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm just gonna hang on to it forever, and I'm gonna nurse it, and I'm going to deny the fact that death can happen. That's kind of what's going on with like pretty much all of the antagonists of Shadowbringers are explicitly concerned with like denying death. Like you know, like what is Vothri if just not just like, well, no, we don't have to like, you know, fight and struggle and, you know, kind of earn our place in the world. We can just pretend nothing bad is happening, and we can ride out the apocalypse. You know, so long as everybody is subservient to me, I can deny you death, right?
We can make peace with the zombies.
Yeah. And
we can reason with them.
And yeah, it's like really interesting. That is kind of the whole thing that hangs over quite literally at the end of Shadowbringers, is hanging over even your character, is like having to come to terms with that. And like very early on in Shadowbringers, that's what Tasleen and everything going on with Alisei is about. It's like, yeah, this is, you are existing in a world where, you know, everybody around you is dying and everybody seems pretty fucked. What are you going to do about it, and how are you going to deal with it? And that's like Shadowbringers is about answering that question, right? And I like it. I mean, obviously I like it a lot because I can't stop thinking about it. I've been thinking about Shadowbringers basically since I finished Shadowbringers, and I will continue to think about Shadowbringers. Probably when they do finally put my dead body in the ground.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, Shadowbringers for me is now almost 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And every single bit of it is like as fresh as the day I finished it, and I don't think it's ever going to leave me. So, it's going to be one of those kind of games.
It's one of those fucking games. It's just like, hey, oh right. Everyone says this is like the best Final Fantasy. Why?
Remember when a bunch of like formative classics came out in the bottom half of the 2010s, like this and Nier Automata, and just like, yeah, they're just gonna be there forever.
You just have to, and Nier Automata is an interesting thing to bring up because again, I think we've talked about that while playing the game. Shadowbringers is very, very concerned with what is being said in Nier Automata and having things to say on top of that. Again, concerning like death and the end of the world and how you make peace with it, I suppose.
Not even just death, but in Nier's case, what it means to be alive at all.
Right.
Yeah. I've said multiple times throughout playing Shadowbringers is, it's no wonder the Nier raids are in this campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is very much like this is the response to Nier Automata's call,
Mm-hmm.
which is really weird because they're not really like in the same franchise, and yet they crossed over anyway. So
Sure.
It's like Nier Automata like issued a challenge, and FF14 picked it up, and Nier's like, "Well, I didn't expect you to do this, but okay."
Sure.
I wasn't aiming this at you, but all right.
Yeah, I literally don't think Square would have the, frankly, the courage to do something kind of weird and different with the next expansion pack of what was at that time, like, oh, for God's sake. Of course my dog is barking. Hold on, Ben, mark this.
Diva chaos time.
Diva.
Crap in here.
Diva.
What a beautiful dog.
What a beautiful Duang.
Chew.
Of course. Did you hear me? Did you hear me?
I just heard you go, Diva.
Get your ass in here. Yeah.
Oh.
So she's in here now. She was barking at somebody walking their dog by the window. I should have kept the windows closed. It's fine. What was I saying? Oh, right. But no, I don't think like without the success of Nier Automata, Square Enix would even have like the courage to do something kind of weird with what was at that time like a games as a service MMORPG that was like finally getting its legs after, it had obviously been doing well after like Heaven's Word was good, but like it was on the upswing. And
yeah, it's like, I don't know like sales figures or anything crazy like that, but there's a certain degree of like, from my experience as someone who didn't start really playing Shadowbringers until 5.3, which was like, over a year after the original thing came out, I didn't really see FF14 was one of the big MMOs, but it wasn't the dominant MMO, I don't think, until after Shadowbringers came out. So it was still a little uncertain, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Nier Automata itself is one of those things where it's like, people really liked Nier and Drakengard. Those were cult classics, but they were cult classics.
Right.
And I don't even think Square expected Automata to do as well as it did, because, like, Platinum aside, Yoko Taro just makes weird games for sad, depressed people.
Yeah, exactly. And
then it was a literally it came out in the same year as Breath of the Wild, and that didn't really slow down its momentum.
Right. It came out within months of Breath of the Wild.
Within less than a month, I believe.
Incredible. And people still talk about Nier Automata, and it's moved like something like 4 million units now, which is
and it's
insane.
like, that is unquestionably a success, especially considering that that game probably wasn't that expensive to develop.
No.
Platinum loves to do cheap merc work. But all that to say, like, they have this weird, unexpected success with Nier, and then Natsuko Ishikawa was like, well, I'm heading things. Do you mind if I make my weird sad person game? I think there's definitely a world where Square Enix just goes, Fuck no.
Absolutely not. Make it more like Game of Thrones, like Shadow or Heavensward and Stormblood. You know what I mean?
Make it normal, girl. Christ. But then the Paul Marketing was looking at the success of Nier Automata like, man, maybe people like being sad.
Maybe people like sad games for depressed freaks.
Now, hold on. Have you heard of this ennui thing? It seems people really eat it.
People really eat that shit up. They love that ennui.
Japanese marketing executives going, what is this ennui?
Well, I guess we're going to inflict it on people.
People love it. People love it.
They adore it, and they love having it inflicted on them. And as we've said many, many times before, Shadowbringers is mostly a game about inflicting new, bespoke forms of sadness onto the unsuspecting public, and then just going, have fun processing that for the rest of your life. And you go, what? Huh? By then, they've already left you behind.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's miserable. I still can't keep up.
It's the best. There's so many just like good things going on in Shadowbringers, and we've barely even scratched the surface.
The one that always stands out to me is after the Sin Eater attack on the Crystarium, where Lena just falls apart.
Yeah, that's such a good scene where she, like, I don't know, there's something very relatable, I guess, of like being so overwhelmingly sad, or I just guess overwhelmed, that you just kind of end up laying on the floor and just not moving, you know? And it's like, that's a thing I've never really seen, like, any other... No, I take that back. The only other video game I've ever seen do that, like, when you've been that sad and you're just so, like, experiencing that much of an emotional overload, is Silent Hill 2.
That's fair.
Which is a hell of a game to make a comparison to with this eyeball melting anime laser video game.
It's really hard to sell that sort of anguish, that rock bottom scream that Lena does in just about anything. Period. You kind of have to do like multiple takes in like cinema in order to do it. And this lady just like cracks it out, and apparently so do all the other voice actresses, which is amazing because I think it really sells how Shadowbringers is a non-stop, constant uphill battle, and a lot of the times you just slide back like a Sisyphean task. There is no easy road to being an actual hero.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite literally at one point, Shadowbringers is an uphill battle, as in you have to literally climb a mountain in order to save the world. And then that boulder rolls right back down on you, yeah.
I was about to say, at least the in the mountain's fairness, it is actually helping you along, just so you can fall a little harder.
The mountain is a very helpful mountain.
In the mountain's fairness, you can reach the top of the mountain and go, well, I'm here at the top of the mountain.
Surely nothing can go bad at the top of the mountain. Oh, no!
Why does it look like Nier Automata?
Why am I... Wait a minute, this isn't supposed to be here yet.
Yet.
Oh, no, everything's gone wrong again.
You will remember the Nier raid largely takes place in the crater of Mount Gulk.
Yeah. Great!
It's fucking buck wild.
Oh, we don't even have the time to talk about the Nier raids. I feel like all of the side content is going to have to get squirreled away into like a weird chaptered podcast.
To a roundup, I'm just going to talk about Lol Noom and Echo Gorge
Right.
I'm just going to go
that.
Just going to go on a weird digression about the Nier raids.
Sure.
Okay, so just a quick poll, by the way. This is unrelated, but just like get it out of the way. Was anyone surprised by the Crystal X arc?
No.
No. God, no.
No, it was
God, no.
not to you.
It's literally...
So, before 5.3 decided to go like, hey, the Crystal Tower is mandatory, and made people go like, a lot of people didn't, because a lot of people are smart and went, Crystal Tower looks like shit. I'd rather do Void Arc.
It's a really shitty raid series, yeah. And it
didn't
still
even know
is.
who the X Arc was.
Yeah, and I didn't even know that they made that mandatory in 5.3, which is very funny because you will do Shadowbringers, and if you haven't done Crystal Tower, you're just like, hey, what the fuck is this?
What's this fucking thing? Well,
what's this dirty little cat?
Yeah.
Well, you don't even know he's a cat at first.
No, where's that hood?
He's a shrimp of a manlet, though. Like, look.
Now he's a little guy, but the thing is, like, for myself, Sarah, and Ben, we had the pleasure of being forced to do Crystal Tower at gunpoint,
Mhm.
because the current FF14 experience is that once you get up to the last mission that takes you in the Heavensward, they're like, hey bitch, have you done Crystal
Go to
Tower
Crystal
yet?
Tower.
It's even
Either you do it or I'll hit you with rocks.
it's even funnier because the way it works is that there is a stopgap at every expansion pack. So if you started and you were in the middle of it and then 5.3 dropped, like while you were in Stormblood, you would be hunky-dory until you got to like the Stormblood patch quests and it went, hey, have you done your Crystal Towers yet? And it'll do it for Heavensward as well.
And then you go, excuse me, what the fuck is a Crystal Tower? And then you have to go do this Pretty Wretched Raid series, which is extremely funny that this is kind of Wretched Raid series is attached to the best thing in Final Fantasy XIV.
there-
Don't
there's
do
a-
it like Praetorium. Don't worry about it.
It's a very weird thing where it's like Natsuko Ishikawa, who has been there the whole time, was the writer for that raid series, and she's like, I'm gonna make it the FF3 raid because FF3 is my favorite one. You get like a crazy raid series where a bunch of shit happens that's mostly unimportant until we get to like the end that sets up the premise for a major part of Shadowbringers. And you get back to Shadowbringers and it's like Natsuko Ishikawa's like, hey, this is my DLC and I've decided that my raid series is mandatory.
It's the important one.
Hope you like FF3, bitch. You haven't even seen the last of it.
And then
it's very funny because like, oh, go ahead.
And then it just throws you into what you thought was going to be a full-ass FF3 world, and then you interact with more than two people, and you go, oh, no, wait, they call it the first, because it is actually a Final Fantasy 1.
It's a Final Fantasy 1.
So aggressively FF1.
And it becomes extremely FF1 with 5.3, but again, we'll get to that. But no, like, the funniest thing is, of course, being made to play Crystal Tower, and then you can actually ask, like, hey, did you see anybody named Graha Tia in there? And the Crystal Expert's like, ha ha, who is that? It's like, okay,
I haven't seen a Mikote named Graha Tia. It's like, I didn't say he was a Mikote.
There's an extremely good Tumblr post. Like, have you seen him? He's very small. You may have just missed him. Have you looked down ever, even once? He's kind of a scale miniature of person, a micro manlet, really. And it's like, I've never seen such a person.
Yeah, it's really obvious.
Because Graha Tia is the shortest man alive, and I love him to bits.
He's our little sweet boy.
It's just,
but literally, and I can't stress this enough, it's so obvious to the point where part of, like, Oats and I were accompanying Sara and Ben through their respective first playthroughs. And Ben's like, that's Graha Tia, isn't it? And our response is, well, what makes you think that? And Ben, playing a minimum height male Mikote, goes, he's the only man I've seen in this game who's not a Lalafell and is shorter than me.
Oh, that's right.
yeah.
It gets to a point where in 5.4, which Ben I think is like finally in at this point.
Yeah,
I'm getting there.
There is a point where
Ben has been interacting with Gabu and the like.
there is multiple NPCs in 5.4 who will go like, it is actually a miracle that nobody in the first knew Graha Tia's name, because he would have dropped it at this point. He is such a bad liar.
He's
Normal Tia.
Regular Tia.
I don't think Ben has gotten that scene quite yet.
No, he has. He has.
Oh, he has. No, he has. That's right.
He has. He's seen
Where,
Graha try to sell the crystals. Yeah. Or buy the crystals.
I have cractal cocaine. Fractal.
I would like a drop of cocaine.
What's your name? Normal Tia.
Oh, I'll have you know, I have done a weed before. In fact, I have
plenty of crime.
I've done a sex. Don't you worry.
The other thing that like tipped me off immediately is that he's wearing a hood.
Oh yeah.
Which means he has to be someone I know, and everyone else is accounted for. The only other dude in that tower is Graha Tia.
You're like, as far as I know, I didn't leave any other small men in the Crystal Tower.
It was either Graha or Nero, and I already have Nero.
I know where Nero is. He's not a little man either.
Yeah, Nero's not 5 foot nothing.
Also, Nero would never ever take charge of a city and be a benevolent leader.
Or
He would crack that whip. Are you kidding me?
He would star scream that shit so fast.
The version of Nero that gets sent back to the First in the Crystal Tower is filling the role of China's and then killing Vothri in a hostile takeover. Making a new Garlean Empire in the First.
You know, we've all watched Transformers Prime, right?
Well, I mean, I haven't, but I don't plan to.
You know the bit where Starscream finally gets to be in charge of the Nemesis, and in the background he's just dancing.
Yeah.
That would just be Nero.
That's Nero. Yeah.
Constantly.
Oh god.
I'm unrelated to the current discussion. I am sending a picture of a shirt that based on a current joke, I think Guraha should wear.
Oh god,
Oh
it's the I've never done drugs shirt.
The full text of the shirt for the listening audience reads, "I've never done drugs, not even beer. I have never heard of sex."
That's our boy. That's our good boy.
He's so stupid and
so
bad at lying.
And yet he isn't. The Crystal Exarch is like actually interesting. We love making jokes about our tiny little boy. However, the Crystal Exarch is very interesting because he is a very secretive man. This is the weirdest. I make jokes every time that all of the Final Fantasy expansion packs are Otome games, and it continues. But this is the weirdest Otome game I've ever played because it's a murder grandpa, tiny cat boy, and a ghost. So like, I don't know. It's a weird. It's a really weird one this time, folks.
And you're just like, where's the psycho that I like from the Stormblood Otome games? And the games occasionally gives you a cutscene like, hey, remember that psycho that you're like? And you're like, yeah. And like, not yet, you don't.
Give it time.
I do love the occasional flashbacks where it's just the Super Friends narrator being like, meanwhile in Garlemald.
It's mostly just Xeno does more murder. Carry on.
Like Natsuko Ishikawa was just like, well, they went to all the trouble of bringing him back to life, even though I killed him, so I guess I have to give him some cutscenes.
I guess he's got to have something to do.
It's mostly just murder. Good for him.
So he just kind of wanders around killing people as a little tiny soldier man.
As a treat.
That's what he deserves.
I had a very hard time. I experienced a euphoric battle and then killed myself. I think I deserve a little bit of slaughter as a treat.
I deserve a vacation. It's just Xenos just like in his little like Garlean guard body, and he's like looking out a window like on a pile of corpses, and he's like, I should buy a boat.
He's just sitting there in Alameda going like, I need to change a pace. It's getting lackluster here.
I've been killing all of these people in Alamigo, and I think, why don't I just go kill some people in Verlit instead?
It'll be great. But okay. Let's see. What were we talking? We were talking about death. We were talking about Alcé.
Yeah.
We talked about how the Crystal Exarch is extremely bad at hiding who he is.
Should we talk about Minfilia? Miniphilia?
I want to really touch quickly on Alphino's chapter though, because it was
Green is a great episode.
So you go to in Alcés, you were in the alternate universe version of Ul'dah and its related area, which you find out is basically the same as Ul'dah, except like half of it has been swallowed up by a giant crystal wave, and the city proper of Ul'dah has been destroyed, as has the Waking Sands. Thank
God.
So really, it's an improvement.
Frankly, yeah, the first is doing great.
So for Alphino though, you go to Lanacea, right? You go to the area of Limsa, and you're like, well, this isn't as much of a jungle as Lanacea was, but I guess it makes sense because we live in a sun-bleached world, so
sure.
We can't have as much foliage. And you're like, where's Limsa? And then you look and you see this like circus tower over in the distance that lights up like a parade at night.
You see
tacky.
You see this pre-rendered background of a city,
And it's like fuchsia and covered in like circus roofs and draping fabric or whatever. And then appropriately, you see it surrounded by just a sprawling shanty town that goes for miles. And it's like, Limsa.
I found it.
Since Ul'dah isn't here anymore, this one had to become the weird stratified capitalist hellhole.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
I love it because I love Alphino. I go back and forth as to which twin is my favorite. The sheer unbridled confidence that Alice has is great.
Mm-hmm.
But Alphino's desire to overcomplicate things and come up with schemes is so endearing.
The warrior voice just like, well, we need to get into the city because, it's restricted. And it's like, and you're just thinking like, well, I could just fight the guards until they let me go in because they realize I'm a big badass. And Alphino's like, hold on. I learned how to draw in middle school to impress girls. If I simply pretend to be an accomplished artist and take commissions for rich people to draw their personas, surely they will let us in. And the Warrior of Light's like, well, okay, let's see where this goes.
Alphino, and this is due only to limitations of the game's engine.
Sure.
Alphino is begging, pleading on hands and knees for the chance to adopt a persona.
He wants to wear a fake mustache.
Warrior
so
Light,
badly.
I realize this wasn't part of the plan, but while we're here, I will need you to call me Guy Incognito.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the funniest part about Alphino is that, like, yes, he does have his little, I'm going to draw these rich people's personas to get into Yulmore's great scheme. That is his second scheme. Remember?
Yeah.
He lets the Catboy that you meet earlier, he takes his first scheme. Alphino's like, yeah, I'm going to scheme my way into Yulmore by pretending I can make pearls out of nothing because I'm setting up this elaborate trade scheme with the first equivalent of the Sahagin, whose names I can't remember.
Onda, I think.
Yonda, thank you. And it's like, he has like a whole scheme of revolving around that. And then the Catboy's like, please, I want to get into the capitalist hellhole so my life can be better. Surprise, it doesn't work out so well for him.
No, it doesn't.
And Alphino's like, that's fine, you can have that scheme. I've got like 20 more, my man. It's okay. You can have that one for free.
You don't even know that my name's really Alphino. Maybe I've been doing a long con this whole time.
This isn't even my final scheme.
And then Alice is like, no, that's his real name. Don't listen to him.
And then Alphino is just like, I've been paying her off the whole time to pretend that my name is Alphino.
My true name is Elmer Q. Albatross.
Oh god!
And then he pulls off a strip of fake skin on his lip to reveal a mustache.
He rips off his coat jacket like he's a Yakuza character and reveals he's actually been a Lalafell this entire time. He's been wearing stilts.
Piloting Alphino like a Gundam.
That's what Alphino dreams about every night. That's what he's like. He wishes he could do that
every single night. Oh, he's so stupid.
Yulmore is great. Getting into Yulmore was also weird for a different reason because I had a dream once, a very vivid dream, that I was playing a Bioshock-like game set in a town, I shit you not, looked exactly like Yulmore.
You spoke it into existence.
Like a big tower that was just the most garish colors full of these rich, haughty assholes.
See, the thing is that you tell me this, it's like, oh yeah, you gotta sneak into a town like that, and that's like a Bioshock game. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a better Bioshock. Surprise, that's what Yulmore is.
Yeah, it really is.
Natsuko Ishikawa's like, what if as a single little bit of this 40-hour RPG plotline I'm writing, I just did Bioshock, but better.
But like, good. Fuck you, Ken Levine. And then she did. Just casually.
The fault is we didn't spend enough time exploring Yulmore and how fucked up it was.
Frankly, that is the one downside, but the problem is that the game is already bursting to the tits with plot. They're like, we gotta cut something, and that's why Ranji is the way he is.
There's a significant amount of evidence that specific character is like, oh, they had more things planned for him, but then they're like, hey, we have to put this game out at some point. Do you really care about Ranji? And Natsuko just sighs and goes, no, I guess not.
I was trying to do a thing, and it's
just not working.
Here's the bare minimum of what we need to have to compare him to Thancred, so Thancred looks like an okay dad. It's like a shitty one.
Thancred is the worst dad ever in this game, which is, he's so bad. I know he's working through some things.
He's working through some things, but it's really weird because he had a lot of experience being a dad and maybe whatever else for real Minfilia for several years. And then he's like, okay, Thancred, you have to be a dad again. And he's like, I'm going to be worse than if I had never tried to be a dad ever.
I'm going to be so bad at it for so long. And then like your weird partner, friend, boyfriend, whatever the hell is going on between you and Urianger, who is not significantly younger than you, but like younger than you by a couple of years.
Yeah, by a couple of years. I think Thancred's like 28, Urianger is like 24.
Are you seriously telling me Thancred is not in his 30s yet?
Thancred is in his 30s. He's 32 to Urianger's, I think, 24.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Oh, right.
So it's even more embarrassing then that Urianger is better at being a dad. I'm going to steal this opportunity to talk about how Urianger is now one of the best characters in Final Fantasy XIV, thanks largely in part to Shadowbringers.
As far as I understand, his glow up is largely just Yoshi P going, I really like Urianger. Can you put him in more things? And like Natsuko was like, yeah, sure, why not? Fuck it.
I also like Urianger, sure.
And they made Urianger some like weird freak, in parentheses, affectionate.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you expect? And you have a guy who is already Urianger.
Correct.
And then he goes, I'm going to go live with the Fae folk.
Yeah.
Also, while you weren't looking, I'm getting upgraded from a C-lister to an A-lister.
I'm gonna get a slutty new fit. I'm gonna act even weirder than before. I'm gonna hang out with the Fae folk. I'm just gonna become your favorite Scion.
What happened is, because Papa Limo died, and because Lise fucked off forever,
forever,
Urianger absorbed their C-lister status.
It's skyrocketed up the tier list.
You know when Piccolo absorbs Nail and Kami? That's what happened.
Well, actually, what I think happened is that he got Papalimo's C-lister energy, right? And then was able to take their combined vacancies to get an A-lister slot. Alice is the one who absorbed Lisa's power.
Correct.
Because they're like, well, Ida is not a character anymore because we killed her, which is to say we turned her into a completely different character. So now we are just going to give all of Ida's character traits to Alice.
And it's going to be great.
We need a big stupid red, and everybody like just slowly
turns their head.
And Alice is just like, what?
And she fills her, because again, Shadowbringers is also where, I mean, Alice is already good in Stormblood, but like Shadowbringers is where Alice gets to like really be either the best or second best Scion, depending on how I'm feeling about Urianger that day. I think Alice is the best Scion.
I think Alice is also the best Scion because in a world in which FF14 wasn't an MMO with a creative character, Alice would be our protagonist.
She would be our protagonist.
FF14 and Shadowbringers especially dares to ask the bold question, what if Dante and Virgil had a good relationship?
Yeah.
I was gonna argue. I think it's a bit more like Alphino is in charge of the protagonist slot in FF14, and then FF14-2 happens, and he plays Alice for the rest of the
time. That's what Shadowbringers is.
Yeah.
Alphino and Alice is...
Alphino
and Alice is, what if Dante and Virgil had a sibling relationship, but Dante was born a girl and nothing else was different?
Nothing else was different. Not even a single thing. And go ahead.
But no, like the bit with the Fae folk is great. We didn't even talk about Titania.
Well, that's what we're doing it now.
Yeah,
we haven't talked about a lot yet, so let's get started with the fairies.
So
they're up north in the place where Ishgard is, and that's the first part where immediately you're like, oh fuck, the first is so ruined. In our world, this place is like where the Catholics all are, and this place, their Catholic city got cratered and turned into the fairy kingdom.
Yes.
It's great. Feoul is my favorite character in Shadowbringers by like
they're
a really
so
wide
good.
margin.
They're
What
so
a
good.
wonderful little goblin.
What a great character.
Who has the audacity to get mad at you for not asking for help when they are in fact a fairy?
Mm-hmm.
What if you met an 80-year-old Irish woman who was in love with you in first sight and also forcibly married you?
I think one of my favorite parts that the game never really lingers on for any period of time is the way Titania seems to work is it's a non-elemental primal.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really absorb any of the energy of the people of the land around them, but it does have weird effects on the people around it. And the first Titania was doing some terrible shit, and they had to lock them up. And then Feoul got it, but only by willingly doing so, and implied that if you were to do the same, you'd end up being like Isael and Sheba, where you would just forcibly be primaled. And I think that's really weird and fascinating.
There's a weird thing where it almost feels like, and this is like not a point of reference I have any confirmation of, it feels like the Sheogorath thing from the Elder Scrolls 4 and the Elder Scrolls 5, where in the Shivering Isles, part of the conclusion to that is like your player character is like, oh, you're going to become the new Sheogorath, congrats. And it's like, oh, what does that mean? And when you find Sheogorath in SMT5, Jesus Christ, that'd be so funny. When you find Sheogorath in Skyrim, and it's like, oh, it's the same guy with the same voice, but he also explicitly refers to having the memories of the hero of the Elder Scrolls 4, but he's just Sheogorath now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because I think Titania is, I know that Titania is kind of like a weird, like pseudo primal, but also Titania is the first boss in Final Fantasy XIV, and going forward, they're kind of all like this. That isn't actually like a for real primal, like,
yeah,
right?
From this point on, they are all primal adjacent, except for the 5.3 character, who we have explicitly named as a primal.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it's she, and then the 89 trial with Innocence are both like. They are both Sin Eaters, which is just like the light equivalent of Void Sin, which is to say, like, they are like powerful demons basically, but they're angel demons.
Right.
And then your 80, your actual 90, your finale ender is like a sorcerer of Eld, quote unquote, which is to say, like, without getting too deep into the whole plot of that yet, is basically like, hey, what if humans were only half of what an actual true person was?
Right.
What happens when you have 100% of a true person? Oh, you have a guy who can shapeshift that is also maybe the Greek god of death.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Don't worry, it's fine.
Or the Greek god of hell, excuse me.
Yeah,
Crucial difference.
The underworld. Yeah, the underworld. There's a different one for death. But no, there's like so many little detail-y things in Ilmeg and like the fairy kind of area in general. I think probably one of the hardest little things I laughed at is that the words of power for the new Mo are just like commands you give a dog. And Urianche is just like casually dropping them in conversation with you.
That was really good. I think the other one is when Feoul is berating the shit out of the Warrior of Light, and Alphino and Alice are making like sly comments about it, and Alphino's just like, reminds me of somebody I know in their childhood, and you see in the background Alice is choking him out like 20 seconds later in the cutscene.
There's so many good like background gags with the twins starting in Shadowbringers, and they don't stop doing it. Like all the way into Endwalker, there's constantly like you just see the twins fighting in the background all the time, and it rules.
That does remind me, and speaking of background jokes, Ben, when you did the credits for Shadowbringers, like 5.0, as everybody is slowly pulling out of the water, did you ever catch where Urianger is?
Yeah.
He washes up on like the other side of the shore.
He's down on the shore.
They're looking around, and Rien's like, "Wait, where's Urianger?" And they're like, he'll be fine."
He'll wash up
And
eventually.
it slowly zooms out, the credits start rolling, and you see over in the background just a guy face down in the water.
My favorite thing about it is the fact that the game likes to remind you that not everyone in the party can swim.
Basically, it's just you and Alice that have who got the Kojin power to breathe underwater or whatever. And then everyone's like, "Oh, you guys can just do that?" And they're like, "Yeah, can't you?" And they're like, "No, we weren't there for that." And you're just like, "Oh, well, tough shit."
We don't have superpowers like you two.
The part where it's revealed that not Leviathan. Who is it? What's the turtle's name?
The
turtle from
the big turtle that wipes out a underwater society.
Oh, that's Bismarck.
Bismarck, that's it, yeah. Where it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna set this up so that you guys can explore the ocean floor, and then he just takes the water away.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, we needed that.
There's fish down here.
All the Kojin are like, "Hey, hold on, I don't remember agreeing to this."
I thought for a while, oh, Emet-Selch did that. That's so fucked up, so that he could walk around. It's like, no, you did that just now.
You just did that, yeah.
Oh,
You're the one who did that.
Also, again, importantly, that doesn't ever go back
No.
to the way it
It
was.
just stays that way.
So the Ondo there is like, "Hey, when's this coming back?" And Oriolight's like, "I don't know, bye."
I didn't do it.
I didn't mean to, bye.
Take it up with Bismarck, not my problem.
Bismarck is sitting there in the background just speaking that weird language that the dragons use for whatever reason. Just like, "What's up? I ain't doing shit. Going back to bed."
I'm not fixing.
It took me a really long time to make that air bubble. Wake me up in 10,000 years and I'll think about fixing it. Bye.
Oh god. So okay.
Watch out, Bismarck, a harpoon. Oh. What? Where? Oh, I see. Make that 20,000 years, fucker.
Oh god. And then the other thing, and because this is again a surprise tool that will hurt us later. We are already at the hour and 11 mark. This is gonna be a problem, people.
Gonna be a long one.
Gonna be a long one. The like I said, it's a surprise tool that will hurt us later, not help us. Is the dog birds who I'm suddenly drawing, the Amaro. There we go. They're like, hey. So there are these birds that live for 120, 200, 300 years. And they can talk eventually, and they love you no matter what. And it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of sad. And then they go, hang on to that one. And you go, why?
Can't
Why?
imagine.
So, we'll come back to that one, because it's going to come kill you later. Don't worry about it.
I also love that all of the beast tribes are themselves immortal.
Yeah.
And this is relevant later.
They're all like Fey folk, so none of them can die, because Fey folk live forever. And that's actually a really important thing that Feoul talks about, because again, Shadowbringers is about death. And Feoul is like, actually, it's really important that you can die, because it means, you can be concerned with the happenings of the outside world, and you can care, because Feoul is very explicit. I don't really care about what is happening outside of the fairy kingdom, because it doesn't really affect me. I can't die. None of this bothers me. I only really care because I care about you. But
because you're my little branch.
You're my little branch.
And if you ever forget to call on me for help again, I'll turn you into a bush.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, oh yeah, that's right. This is it. It just kind of keeps bringing that back around. That this is what Shadowbringers is about. It's about death and dying and dealing with it, or not dying.
Dealing with it.
I will take this moment to encourage both of you. I know Sara has already started working on it, but I don't know that Ben has done much of it yet. To do the Fey Folk Beast Tribe quest.
Yeah.
Because there are, as with any quest, there are things that happen in it, and they are things that are in dialogue with their part in the MSQ in a way that I think is cool. So,
it does kind of disappoint me that with all of these cool places, Y'shtola's section did not really have that same impact.
Unfortunately, it has the burden of being Gridania.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can't really escape the fact that it's still Gridania. And also, the
problem with the Y'shtola's section is that we can finally talk about it. Y'shtola's section, who cares? Because it's also the part of the game where you're hanging out with Emet-Selch, who is the best character in Final Fantasy XIV.
That is true.
Like, you go there and hey, I'm gonna go see Y'shtola, and Y'shtola's like, hey, what's up? I'm hanging out in this tree village. I got this large man here, who redacted, which is just going great for me. And you're like, oh, that's cool, Y'shtola. I'm glad you've been doing good. And she's like, hey, who's that with you? And I'm like, who? And then Emet-Selch is just there.
And Emet-Selch is just like, who's this dirty cat doing here?
And it's like, okay, we are now hanging out with Emet-Selch.
The best joke in the game, so far, is when he literally does the fucking peace sign fade away.
Yeah, you've committed the cardinal sin of boring me. I'm out. It makes the situation worse. Just being like, nope, I don't feel like dealing with this. So yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about it on roundups, but we can finally, now that we're talking about Gridania. So like, at this point in the game, you've seen Emet-Selch a few times. You've seen him be like a cackling freak in the build up to Shadowbringers, and then
mostly until now seen him and been like, everyone been like, oh, that's Solus Zoscalvus, somehow the at this point long dead founder of the Empire. That's crazy.
Okay.
And they're like, well, no, actually, I'm an Ascian. Also, I have lots of clones of this dude sitting around the basement for fun.
And would you get off of my desk? Thank you. Please be gone, cat. I appreciate that. But yeah, so then you've seen him kind of just like hanging around, keeping an eye on things, and then he shows up in the Crystarium and is like, I'm gonna lay the entire plan out. I'm gonna tell you everything. And then I just want to hang out with you. And you go, huh? Wow. Wait, what? Wait, what? Yeah, because like literally the plan is he just wants to hang out and see what happens. Fuck the old plan.
You're like, hey, aren't you the baddies? And he's like, I don't know, it might be.
I might be. I might not be. Who's really the bad guy around here?
I'll decide later if I'm the baddies.
He lays flat out the concept of like, you know what? If you guys figure it out and do it like without a hitch, I'll just give up on my evil plans because you guys are doing better than what I was trying to do.
You're doing what I was trying to do.
I'll watch out.
If you fuck up my plans, it doesn't matter. I'm literally immortal. Because again, we're talking about death and dying and not being able to die. So he's like, hey, I am immortal. If I don't like what you're doing, I can just make a new one because I have all of the time in the world.
I can just outlive you.
I'll just outlive you if I have to.
I mean, I could kill you directly, but I could also just wait.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It doesn't matter to me.
I'm not really doing anything this Friday or, like, for the next 10 million Fridays. I mean, I'll figure it out.
I'm really, like, free up until 2089. Watch out when that happens.
When you are 12,000 years old, or however the fuck old Emet-Selch actually is, like, waiting, I don't know, 60, 70 years for the Warrior of Light to croak is like nothing. It's just, you just take a nap and that's over with, Mm-hmm. So he's just hanging out with you now.
Yeah, he's very familiar with living in a normal human time frame and people just croaking at before he does is the thing. So he's used to that. That's not new for him.
Yeah, no. So now he's just gonna hang out with you and basically from this point onward steal the show. Like, Like, depending,
Flat
I mean,
out.
just flat out, depending on the day of the week, either the best character in Final Fantasy XIV is Xenos or it's Emet-Selch. But, like, in terms of just interesting shit going on with him, Emet-Selch is really, really good.
At risk of being reductive, he's Q
Mm-hmm.
in a series that doesn't normally have a Q,
That's right.
but then extremely delivers on Q.
Yeah.
But he's still Q.
He's still doing Star Trek Q shit, where he's immortal, he's essentially omnipotent, you know, and
All he does is exist to be passive-aggressive at you.
He effectively exists to be all-seeing, all-knowing, unbidden by your concerns, and his only source of joy is pissing you off. Also, sometimes he shows up wearing a mariachi outfit for no explicable reason.
I wish.
It's interesting because effectively, as soon as he shows up, he kicks all of your supporting staff out.
Mm-hmm.
And they stop being supporting characters in the same way that they were up until that point.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting because at that point you are like the fun part of the Raktika Greatwood is the fact that like you're just kind of hanging out with like the villain of like the seer of the game at this point. He's one of the top 3 Ascians. They've established that. And he's just road tripping with you.
And he really does, aside from that part, really does explicitly steal the show from his Stola or whatever, because she's always been like your extremely smart, like, potent mage who can figure out a crazy solution out of something in a pinch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that happens, and she gets disappeared, and Emet-Selch's there, and she's like, I'll just fix that. And you're like,
fix that.
And you're like, really? You're just gonna fix it? And he's like, yeah, I'll just do it right now. And
It's not hard.
He literally just does it with a snap of his fingers, and he's like, anyway, it's been fun, I guess. Bye.
We're just gonna keep hanging out now, and you go, wait, okay. And
then Yashola's like, ooh, safety net.
I can keep flinging myself into danger now.
Ishtola's like, are you telling me that I can just do stupid shit and you'll bust me out of it? And he's like, and he just gets this vibe of like, oh no, I'm not getting in this scenario.
Oh no, I'm enabling her. I gotta go.
It's just fucking that fucking Family Guy bit. Everybody gets one.
Yeah.
Everybody gets one. Everybody gets one except for the one person who got like 10,000, but you're not them.
Oh yeah.
Who's that one person? Don't worry about it.
We're not talking about that.
That's a surprise reveal that will hurt me later and also right now. Are you okay, Emet-Selch?
No.
And that's
Could a
also
depressed person do this?
that's also when we slowly get the reveal that Emet-Selch is a sad clown. He is not a clown. There is nothing in there that isn't just a shield put up around himself.
Mm-hmm.
Because, oh my god, everything else around him is so miserable. And you don't really know it yet.
Right.
But you can keep asking him and bugging him in between quest lines just to see what's going on. And it's interesting that he almost gives it away multiple different times.
Mm-hmm.
But catches himself and makes you wonder, why the fuck are you hanging out with us, Emet-Selch?
Yeah, why are you hanging out with us? Why do you care? It becomes obvious, especially later on, that you're not just hanging out with us for like shits and giggles, and you're not hanging out with us to like disrupt our plans or whatever, because you're actually being bizarrely helpful and
you're
like,
not just
truthful.
hanging out with us because we killed Nabrialis and La Habrea
You're
and a bunch of other ones who never got names, because like you ostensibly liked them and you would have killed us if that was a big problem for you. So clearly something else is going on. And he's like, oh ho ho, I won't tell you because I'm shy. And then he leaves.
And then he kind of fucks off for a little while, and you're like, and then you do spend the rest of Raktika Greatwood. And whenever Emet-Selch isn't on the screen, we should all be asking, where is Emet-Selch? Unfortunately, he eventually comes back, thank God.
Yeah. And at some point you go back, you're like, well, this is all going fine and dandy. I guess we've killed like 3 of these at some point. Let's go get the one in Amarang. So you go back to Amarang, and it's like, hey, what if there was this alcoholic, depressed guy who was sad about his wife? And they're like, that sucks, bro. He's like, it's cool. I know how to build robots.
Don't worry about it. It's thematic as he slowly builds another creature and puts his heart in it.
And it's like, okay, now I'm gonna put you on these robots are going to push you on this minecart, and nothing bad is going to happen. Oh fuck, it's Ranjit.
Beans.
That's just
Oh, good.
That's just what happens. Like it's like his boss title card is fuck, it's Ranjit.
God damn it, it's Ranjit again.
Which means we can now talk about the worst duty in the game.
The worst part of Shadowbringers.
Of Final Fantasy XIV. I am going to put that out there.
The man who looks like a racist caricature of like a fake idea of a Chinese person shows up and he's like, you think that you're a good dad, but actually I'm a good dad because good dads keep their children locked in the basement for 8 years. And Thancred's like, I'm not sure that's correct. And he's like, really? Well, prove it. And then you have to fight him as a bad gunbreaker for 15 minutes.
Bad.
And as a gunbreaker main, this sucks.
It's awful. It is. I made the mistake of, because it's not hard. It's just slow.
It's so long because
you're doing gunbreaker damage. Tanks don't do damage like that.
Gunbreaker doesn't even do like Dark Knight damage. Gunbreaker does bad tank damage, and also you don't have your full move set.
Well, no, the thing is, Gunbreaker does pretty good damage when you have access to the things that let you do damage.
And I was gonna say, this was during like Shadowbringers, during like Gunbreaker's peak. That thing was doing more damage than a bard.
Right.
But it's still just like, so you get this really bad moveset, and you're like, okay, well, is my moveset like good? And it's like, well, no.
It's like a wet tissue paper, so have fun with that.
You don't have like any of your burst really, and also all your shit is like just the same potency as it ever would be, and also his boss has like 1 billion HP, and you are expected to fight him, and also if you're not careful, he can kill you in like 2 hits, and so like you make an honest attempt to do it on normal, and then you spend like 15 minutes getting him down to like 90%, and then you fuck up once and die, and you're like, no, very easy. I should have just done this on very easy from the beginning, because every time they make a duty where I have to play as someone who's not me, I get a bad stripped down moveset, and more often than not, I resent it.
Correct.
I want to just follow up real quick because Saturn mentioned it, but I want to bring it up. Ranjit looks like rejected concept art for a Street Fighter 2 character.
Yes, he does.
He's down there on the cutting room floor of Zubaz.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that picture of like the sketch of Zubaz. Like, if you in the file, the scanned file, over to the right is Ranjit.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It's really sad. The other part that like really makes it worse is the aftermath, because the entire time you were thinking to yourself, like, oh, they're giving me this now because this is Thancred's last stand in all caps. And then like they don't even let they don't even wait for the shoe to like kind of stop swinging before they just drop it.
Right.
And you come back and he's just fine and fucking dandy. So the entire point of you doing that was all for fucking naught.
Yeah.
Like,
every time you have put up with an annoying scripted Ranjit fight, it has been to do this pain in the ass encounter that has absolutely no payoff whatsoever. Except knowing that Ranjit can no longer bother you.
And even still, Ranjit does keep bothering us because if it had been like you have to do this bad tedious boss fight as Thancred, but you get to, as Thancred, kill your adopted daughter's weird, abusive other dad, then, like, that's a moment. You know what I mean? That's a cool... We've done it. We have done a character art for Thancred. He's gonna, like, decide, like, I am going to, like, give up my own life to kill this shitty guy, and I don't want Thancred to die, mind you. I think that's bullshit. I love that man.
Oh, yeah.
But like it's like, okay, this is gonna have some sort of like real plot payoff, right? We're gonna fight as Thancred. We're gonna kill this guy and solidify the fact that we would do anything for our little baby daughter, who we all love very, very much. But no, you don't even get to do that. You don't even get to kill the guy as Thancred to like give Thancred that W.
Yeah.
He still gets away. So he still gets away and lives. So you're just sitting there the whole time watching Thancred have his moment where he's like, haha, I did it. You're like, you didn't do it because it means I'm gonna have to fight Ranjit again.
You didn't do anything, Thancred.
The Warrior of Light is like, ultimately, Thancred, I think this reflects much worse on your narrative arc as a parent than it does on Ranjit, because I'll be the one who kills Ranjit, and you'll have accomplished nothing.
You've done nothing except make me do a 15-minute long duty that sucked ass from start to finish.
It makes his emotional payoff so much weaker. I don't want it to have happened, but I would have preferred if Thancred had died, because that would have shown that he really wasn't cut for what he was trying to do.
Right.
You know? And at least that would be, like, thematic with what is going on in Shadowbringers.
Somebody had to die.
Yeah.
To both her benefit and her detriment, Natsuko Ishikawa is allergic to killing characters. And, like, I think that... don't worry about it. I think that's fine. Like, because again, like, I'm personally not a fan of the, you know, like, the Game of Thrones style of character death, or like the Walking Dead style, where
no one's safe.
And like sometimes a character just dies at a random time for no reason, and it's like, well, what was this for? And it's like, for nothing. The character's just dead. Sorry, go fuck yourself.
I'm still mad about Moonbrita, yes.
Yeah, it's good storytelling. Natsuko Ishikawa will die mad about Moonbrita, probably. However, the problem, and that emerges in Shadowbringers too, is that like this would be a great scenario for either Thancred to fully overcome Ranjit and do what must be done to show that he is strong enough and prepared enough to be a dad, which is what his whole arc is about, or for him to get killed trying and show that he's not cut out for that, but like, you know, he laid his life on the line for something he believed in, and like whatever else. But it's like, instead we get this weird scenario where he doesn't fail, but he doesn't win. And we're supposed to consider that a good reflection on his readiness to be a dad.
Right.
And it's like, well, hold on.
Really?
You haven't yet gotten over the whole hurdle where you spent like the first 75% of this expansion pack being the worst dad in the world. You have not balanced those scales yet.
You need to do more for that, my man.
What it boils down to is that I'm totally fine, and I approve, I like that Natsuko Ishikawa is hesitant to kill characters, because I think death is cheap. There's a lot of deaths in other media where I'm like, well, this did nothing, you know.
Yeah, we can almost say.
Yeah, I know what happened, Sarah. You don't have to. I saw it already. You can don't have to be coy about it.
We can just say that whatever Natsuko Ishikawa does decide to say, like, hey, what if we killed this character? It's like, well, you didn't have to do that, Natsuko Ishikawa.
But the thing is, what has to happen is that you have to stop putting characters in situations where death would be a logical outcome.
And then not killing them.
Yeah, right.
Because then the problem is now, whenever you encounter a situation where, like, this character is in a position where they might die, you're like, well, I'm playing a Natsuko Ishikawa written RPG, so that character's going to be fine.
Totally fine.
If Thancred had killed Ranjit, that would have been a fully realized part of his development. Yeah, right? Like, that's it.
And alternatively, if Ranjit killed Thancred, then it's like, oh fuck, this sucks. Also, we still can't afford to not take Ranjit seriously because he killed Thancred.
Yeah.
Who is, you know, by all accounts, a badass in his own right.
It feels like chickening out.
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Where if you had just not done this fight, if it had just been like Thancred been like, I'll hold him off, and then cut to later.
And you just never see Thancred again, but you see Ranjit again, and you can draw your own conclusions about what the fuck happened there.
Or if it's just like what happens 500 times in FF14 previously, which is they hold them off and catch up later.
Right.
And it's not really like a big deal. It's just like, well, we need some reason for the player character to keep moving forward and to not have these characters in the fight.
Yeah, but instead we just get like kind of trying to do every approach and succeeding at doing no approaches correctly.
So basically, every time Ranjit shows up, everybody all of the time is just like, oh, god damn it, it's Ranjit again.
Because it also doesn't help that Ranjit is just kind of like that. Her going, well, they brought Xenos back and then made me write a DLC where I literally can't have Xenos here.
Right.
I'm just going to make another Xenos.
And then just less interesting.
And then not give him any of Xenos' charm points.
No, here's the thing. The hypothetical situation, the hypothetical version of Shadowbringers, where every Ranjit fight is replaced with a Xenos fight.
Best game ever made.
Where he's not really here for any purpose besides just to fight the Warrior of Light and just get in the way.
The thing is, when I threaten this little girl who you hang out with, it makes you fight me. So I find it's very expedient.
It's very effective.
He doesn't know what's going on. He has no stake in anything that's happening in the first whatsoever. He just keeps popping up to be like, hey, let's fight. And you're like, I'm in the middle of something.
That would be so much better.
Well, here's the thing, and I this just came to me, is they could have done that whenever they were like, you know, oh, he died, but then he got put in this weird other body.
Mm-hmm.
What? Where they could have just been like, oh, he died, and you're like, well, shit, I guess he's dead. And then he shows up in the first. And he's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, well,
I don't know.
I was having a normal one, and then someone told me to throw wide the gates, and now I'm here.
And now I'm here.
Honestly, I should point out, since he is an Asty now and he can't teleport,
He can just go! He can just literally go first!
There was nothing stopping him, he just didn't know where you were.
Yeah.
He just had no ideas. Nobody was gonna. I guess nobody's gonna tell him because the whole point is that we probably shouldn't tell. Like, Xenos probably shouldn't know where you are.
I guess Emet-Selch isn't gonna say anything because, like, oh fuck, if my grandson shows up and starts making a fucking mess of things, it's gonna really dampen my whole day.
No, just imagine the situation where Xenos just rolls into the Rising Stones and he's like, hey, is the Warrior of Light here? And Tara's like, oh my god, please go away.
Tataru's like, wow, you're 6'9" with the shoulder pads, huh? And he's like, who are you? Do you know the Warrior of Light?
I want the timeline. Because Sarah and I talked about this earlier. It's not clear if Xenos knows the Warrior of Light's name.
It's really funny.
So just imagine the situation of Xenos walking around, like, asking, like, where my friend or my prey is, and no one just knows what he means.
It's like, he's like, oh, you know, they're about like yay high, and he just gestures to some point lower than his shoulders.
He's like, they're about this high, and his range is like a foot. What race are they? Bipedal.
Literally, from the same artist who did the normal Tia thing, there was a comic. It's like, hey, did you notice it's like, what do you feel about Catboys? You know, it's like, I don't particularly care about Catboys. And it's like, you didn't notice the Warrior of Light's a Catboy, and it's just him responding with a deadpan stare, and then just a text box pointing at him that says "didn't notice."
Yes, that is correct.
Correct. Oh god.
I love the image you guys have put in my head, though, of him just showing up right at the same time Emet-Selch does in Rakatika, and Emmett just, like, jumping like a cat, not expecting him to be like, there's this one, what are you doing here?
No, you know how normally Emet-Selch just, like, he, like, goes to, like, a portal of darkness to get away? Xenos shows up and you just hear, and he's gone.
It just pops out of existence.
The Warrior, like, going through Almara, and Xenos just looking at them like, did you fuck my grandpa?
I don't know, I might have fucked your great-grandpa.
Why? Does that bother you? And he just doesn't respond.
he just leaves.
Silently staring forward. Oh, God. Oh, like we did it. We found a way to improve Shadowbringers, folks.
If it does bother you, we can fight about it.
Oh, great! Yes, it does bother me. In fact,
no. You know the part in the late in the patch in the patch quest, the Faded Memories duty. in Amarat, where you fight through all your past battles.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, in fact, I do.
When you get to the part where you fight Xenos, it's just real Xenos.
He's just hanging out.
Elizabeth's
Popped
just like,
up.
how did you get here?
He's just mad that Elizabeth made a shitty copy of himself. It's like, that's not how that went. Get out of here.
It really went like this.
This one hey Elidibus, this one seems more real than the others. Like, that's because it's the real Xenos. I don't know how he got here.
I like the alternate version of this where you do the whole thing with like the whole wandering minstrel framing device for the extreme trials, but extreme Shinryu is just you fight regular Xenos.
God, I would do anything for that.
Oh,
This is like,
please.
well, hey, what happened to Shinryu? It's like, well, there's this very big, like, 7'2" man who showed up and told me that I need to write about how cool him fighting you was. So,
Oh, God. Okay.
Anyway,
We've
real
lost the
Shadowbringer.
thread.
The point
the
is,
real Shadowbringer. The point is that
Ranjit
Ranjit sucks. And,
the point
and
is fuck Ranjit.
there's so many better ways we could have done this character. Or, and hear me out, we could have just not done this character.
Well, I think by the unfortunately by the point they realized they didn't have enough time to do Ranjit right, he was already kind of a load-bearing Ranjit.
yeah,
You know?
Yeah.
that's a low
Yeah.
poster.
You could remove him with a different character, or
You
even
would
a
have
different
had
boss.
You would have had to do a significant, like, I think the thing is mostly you would have had to do a significant amount of rewriting and reconcepting to like change the narrative around how it is Mini Minfilia comes to.
Yeah.
That's true. She is
Yeah.
tied to Miniphilia.
Ranjit does have a purpose in that Vothri can't go places, and
Right.
he needs to be there to be Vothri.
Now,
Right.
the thing is, you could have fixed that by just having Vothri show up in places, just walking around and being that huge.
You know, you guys have all played Jack 2, right?
Yeah.
You remember Crew? Get his little
Little
hover
bit.
cart?
Yes, I am.
But all and then like after all the horrible shit with Ranjit is when we get the scene of like, I believe this is when you get the scene of like Minfilia, Mini Minfilia, like having her ghost meeting with normal Minfilia, who at this point has disappeared into the ghost dimension, to do shit, and Minfilia's like, it's okay, they don't want to write me back into the script, so you can either be Minfilia or you can just be whatever you want to be. And she's like, I'm cool with being whatever I want to be. And Minfilia's like, okay, bye. And then Mini Minfilia's hair turns orange, and Thancred's like, I'm giving you a name now. It's
You get a
Reen.
real name now.
And-
Congratulations.
And Reen's just like, I wish you had thought about that for more than 30 seconds,
No.
but I guess it's better than you calling me Minfilia.
No,
So-
I do appreciate the gag of them, like, thinking about names, then being like, if you're cool with that name. Like, if you want to be Reen, you can
Right.
think of your own name.
I love the other really minor gag that really ties Urianger and Thancred together, where Thancred's just like, well, what about a pixie name? And Urianger's just like, I didn't think you were paying attention to me.
That was a cute joke. That actually was cute.
Oh,
So-
you remembered.
You've been
Can you
paying
imagine-
atten- You actually listen to me when I
You're,
talk.
you're
Can you
thinking about my
imagine?
baby names. Oh, you remember.
Can you imagine the world in which, like, he accidentally just like, oh, what about pixie names? What about, like, Feo Ol? And then suddenly Reen just gets turned into Titania.
Oh God.
But no, Reen turns into Strelitzia, and then she came
That's
first.
a Union Cross joke, I think.
She came first, actually, which is hilarious.
Oh.
It's okay.
It's
Oh.
okay.
Oh.
And then we go fight a cool, what is it? The monster down in the well is
Oh, yeah, Storage.
Storage.
Yeah.
Storage.
Storage.
Storage is good.
He's got crazy AoEs and looks like a biblical angel.
It's
Yeah.
fine. No, it's what happens when a pixie gets turned into right? Like a normal
Yeah.
pixie gets turned into a light warden?
They implied that was the case, which is
Cool.
buck shit to think about.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, because if you're Titania, you are just Titania but white.
Right.
But if you're a regular pixie, you get turned into a biblical angel with crazy AoEs.
Oh God.
Thank God there's not a whole lot besides the batshit crazy AoEs.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a nice, quiet fight.
Also, you fight Bucket Mathbot.
Yeah! He's got a drill that's gonna pierce
Mathbot
the heavens.
too.
What if you had a Mathbot that was just covered in buckets, enough to make a Homestuck fan blush?
Every time we bring Saturn around, we get another Homestuck reference.
I was gonna
Look,
say, like, half the time I show up, you guys make a Bioshock reference.
Look,
What is
I-
that?
I can't help it. It was my Harry Potter, except I have the acknowledgement that my Harry Potter is one of the worst things that was ever written.
Anyway.
But enough about normal Harry Potter.
So what happened? What else is there? What else is there after?
After
When-
this is when the attack happens, right? When Vothri's like, I'm declaring war on your shitty city.
Also, take a look at my face nipple.
Oh yeah, we have to
Look
deal.
at
We have to
this
go deal with
thing.
Vothri.
So it turns out the Soylent Green jokes were real.
Oh, that
and
was
terrifying.
that was like I knew that right away.
Angels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
here's manna from heaven for all of you lowly poors, and I'm like, how many corpses are in there? Oh, all of them.
All of them.
Do not worry, it is called meal, and it looks like a strange, fleshy-colored lump. It is very delicious.
It's like a pork dumpling, but I won't tell you what
And then-
to try.
The Warrior of Light just leaning over to Alphino, being like, 70-60, that's human flesh, or 70-30, that's human flesh.
He's like, it's like a pork dumpling, but 500 times less kosher. Enjoy!
He's like, don't worry. In a way, your friends are here for dinner.
Father is one of the most.
Now, hold on. What is this Kuru thing you're trying to tell me about? No, thank you. That sounds horrible. Here, have some meal.
Vothri is the most Jim Cummings villain I've seen since 90s Disney cartoons.
It is a shame that they couldn't get Jim Cummings to voice him.
It's such a shame.
I will say Vothri, the other thing with Vothri is that he is the other part of this where I'm like, oh, the FF14 writing room played Destiny 2, because he is, like, in basically every respect, just the first raid boss from Destiny 2, which is to say, he is a giant nihilist who serves the evil side by being like, well, I don't actually want to live forever. Everything's gonna die. The only thing I want is to be the last person alive at the end of existence so I can be God for a couple of seconds.
Right.
This is the worst. I do appreciate how Vothri is they really comfortably straddle that line where he is at all times impossible to take seriously and also an actual genuine threat.
Yeah.
But not in the same way that like a lot of older Final Fantasy villains are. He's just a really stupid man baby with a lot of power.
Yeah.
And isn't that the most like threatening and scary thing in the world, right?
Yeah.
It's just like a spoiled, petulant child
Yeah.
who could, with a word, ruin your life.
What if there was a very fat old man with dementia who held the highest power
Yeah.
in the land and
Yeah, don't
controlled
worry
the
about
news?
it. When did this game come out? 2019?
Hmm.
I'm sweating bullets. Don't talk about it.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's crazy if there was just like a disgusting freak who could
who
easily
surrounded
wreck your
himself with
life.
opulence.
Yeah, and who got there entirely on the surrounds himself with like really tacky shows of wealth and wants nothing more than to be acknowledged by like the other ruling class as like the coolest, goodest boy.
He'd sit with his mouth or with his hands like a fucking lunatic.
Like a freak and you know, got there by the merits of like, you know, who his parents were. Wouldn't that be crazy?
That would
Crazy.
be ridiculous.
Little known fact, Donald Trump also has a second human face on one of his
I
legs.
actually would completely believe that, yes.
Now listen. I'm not saying the staff of FF14, who is a Japanese-based company, did this on purpose.
However,
What I'm saying is that Donald Trump exemplifies this exact stereotype so succinctly that you could believe it.
oh yeah.
He just does that himself.
Unfortunately for number 45, he does not get an insanely cool boss transformation. Instead, he just sort of leaves office in shame and does his dementia tweeting via a proxy.
If you think about it, what are Ben Garrison comics if not exactly that? I mean, you think about it, right?
Oh no!
So we have to deal with Valkyrie.
Yeah, he declares war on the Crystarium. I'm like, well, we have to finally put a knife in this big man because he's being a royal pain in my ass. And so you go there, and he's like, guess what? Soylent Green is made of people. And you're like, yeah, I know. I've been alive
seen movies.
I've been alive for at least 3 days. I know about the whole Soylent Green thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go fly to the top of this mountain now. Bye.
With his bitty Yoshi wings. I don't.
You know what you know what I do appreciate? I do appreciate a good story. A very complex and involved story like Shadowbringers, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of moving pieces, and there's a lot of depth and nuance here. And I appreciate the fact that the problem we're having right now is we just can't get to this guy. He's just really high up,
this guy.
and we can't
really
get to
high.
him.
Yeah.
Well, he's on top of a mountain, and that mountain is on top of that cliff, and the only way to get up on that cliff is this big fucking elevator that hasn't worked in 100 years.
Right.
And then everybody looks at Elon Musk wife guy, and they're like, hey, do you know how to fix this elevator? He's like, I guess. I mean, there's a bunch of shit I have to do. I don't know. It sounds like kind of a pain in the ass. And we're like, look, you little freak. We're going to teach you about the power of friendship. And your curvy wife, who you love so much, is going to encourage you to do your best. And he's like, well, that sounds okay, actually.
We have not talked about how the Chais are the most married couple in JRPG history.
If you look up married in the dictionary, you will actually see a photograph of Chinese and Dolia Chai.
Correct. In the same way that Alphino and Alice are probably the only correct representation of how siblings actually treat each other in the real world, as personified in the video game, we also get that in Final Fantasy XIV with the Chais, who are just delightful, just like the best married couple in probably any video game ever. Because they're just so, like... Genuine and funny. And at first I thought, like... I don't know, when you first meet the Chais, I really did think that China's, like... was just kind of a shitty... He's gonna be like a bad guy, like a detached, like, oh, my wife is fat, I can't stand it. No! He loves his curvy wife. He's just got anxiety.
He's just a bitter, tired old man.
He's a bitter, tired old man who's like maybe 28.
Who knows?
But he's still madly in love with his wonderful wife, and he wants to make her happy.
He wants a pretty picture drawn of her, and he wants it to be like nice and flattering. And I like one of my favorite like little moments in Shadowbringers is that he's like, oh no, this isn't what we look like at all, or it's gonna piss her off. And then she sees it and she's like, no, it's perfect. Like, it's the ideal representation of them, which is exactly what they look like, which is all Dolia Chai wants, is just like a good, like,
just a picture of them being happy.
A picture of them together, being happy and in love. And you're like, oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's nice. She's totally cool with how she looks. You know, she's not like ashamed of herself, and she loves her husband, and she wants like an accurate representation of that reality. And it's like, that's an adorable little detail, and I love it.
There is actually an interesting like game development cheat they do with Dolia Chai, where for anyone who's for some reason listening to this and has never looked at FF14,
God, why?
Congrats, I guess. But second off, the thing with Dolia Chai is that she is a Mikote lady, and so the Mikote are all like, you know, like they're like low 5 feet, but they're mostly like very, you know, svelte cat people. Dolia Chai is one of like two who is a very fat cat, just because that's Yolmore. It is, you know, like
opulence
for better or worse, it is a signal of the opulence of Yolmore that despite this being the apocalypse, she can be a very large cat lady. She does not, however, use the character creation cat girl assets like other Mikote do. She has a custom model. And in order to, like, communicate her size better, because if she just used the normal Mikote animations, there would be, like, a lot of shit of like 3D models clipping into each other weirdly and just looking very like awkward and unbelievable. What they actually do is they scale up the Lalafell animation skeleton to be 5 feet tall.
It's so good.
Oh my god,
It's
really?
so good. Yeah, it's amazing.
She is a custom model with a Lalafell animation skeleton that's at 5 feet tall instead of like 3 feet tall.
It's adorable.
It's so cute.
That's
and, like,
so
as a
fitting
result-
for her, though.
I know.
And it's like as a result, because Lalafell have like even like whatever their size is, they have kind of like squat, waddly builds. But like as a result, they're able to communicate her size in a way that like looks natural in game instead of any of the other ways they could have done that. And it's just like, damn, I appreciate it. I'm glad they put in the effort to making that look nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love her.
As opposed to Vothri, who does not look nice.
No.
But that's because he's evil. It's different.
He's a freak. Yeah, he's a disgusting freak. It's fine. So we gotta climb a mountain, folks. We gotta use a robot. We gotta use multiple robots and a golem to climb a mountain. But listen, everything is going great. We got all of our friends together to push this boulder up a hill.
Also, I do have to stress. So it's like, okay, we get up there. How do we get there? Okay, well, Catboy Elon Musk helps us, fix the elevator, and then we get up there, and Vothri's like, actually, this mountain is flying now. So go fuck yourself. And we're like, well, how do we get up there? It's like, well, if I made a robot, wouldn't be enough. I would have to make some kind of extremely big robot. And then you get all the warriors together and you make like a 200-foot tall stone robot
and it
to
rules.
just make a body bridge onto the mountain.
It kicks ass,
It's
right?
so fucking cool.
But we got all our friends together. Everything is going great, folks. We're climbing the mountain.
I love a good Gondor calls for aid sequence. I love just like all the warriors are here.
I do gotta stress, it is incredibly funny that it's like the penultimate dungeon, and it builds really hard. And you do kind of think that it's probably going to be the last one, and they do fake you out, and it was pretty cool. But also, it is really distracting how Mount Gulg's music is just the Batman theme from like.
It is just the Batman. It is just the Batman theme.
You are right. Oh my god.
It's really distracting.
I will say what's actually really great about Mount Gold, before we let Sarah continue, is that aside from the fake out, it's also like it's a really high quality fake out where they give you this seemingly last dungeon and a seemingly ultimate trial, and no, you still haven't even seen all the areas in Shadowbringers, idiot.
You know from a fact, from looking at your travel log of like all the ether currents, there's still a blanked out area, but they trick you. They make you think like this. Because it feels like a final dungeon. It's got all the grandeur and the cool final boss. You have a really good conversation with Emet-Selch before you go up the elevator that we'll talk about when we kind of go into other things. But like I said, we did it, folks. We climbed this mountain. We pushed the boulder up the hill. What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
And anyway, so the Sorcerer Veld casts gun at your Catboy, and everything's gone horribly fucking wrong.
He's like, well, I have all the magic of the ancients on my side, but I do also have this Glock. And the thing is, the Glock is significantly easier.
And I love it when things are easy.
And also, I am a theater bitch, and what's more dramatic than just someone shooting you in the back?
Quite literally.
Yeah.
Shooting you in the back.
So good.
It's so good. No subtlety whatsoever. I love him.
We need to point out that in the middle of the final battle, Vothri bought a Fantasia.
I've never seen anybody Fantasia in the middle of a trial before, but I respect it. Yeah.
He Fantasia'd from a 7-foot tall Lalafell into a bunny boy, which good for him. Good for him.
I mean, absolutely.
Chase your bliss for
He
sure.
wanted to twink it up a little bit before you fucking put him in the ground.
Great trial. One of my favorite.
Yeah.
I say one of my favorites.
Favorite dungeon
like,
in the game so far. Still,
there's so many fucking
is that one.
good ass trials.
Mount Golg is an extremely good dungeon too. You've done most of the Shadowbringers ones. You still have some post Shadowbringers to unlock and a few optional ones that you haven't unlocked. But like Mount Golg is still like, I don't know. I think that's the best dungeon for at least like I want to say I like maybe the last dungeon of Shadowbringers a little bit more, but it's still not as like a much of a spectacle as Mount Golg is. Mount Golg is like a very high point.
Plus, it's just aesthetically appealing. It has a lot of really good boss fights. It ends on an insanely good trial with it. One of my favorite songs in the whole game. I think Innocence is like a super, super good song. That fight itself is really fun. Like it's manageably difficult. Like it's not so hard that you feel like you're tearing out your hair. And yeah, like I said, everything's going great, and then it's extremely not. And suddenly Shadowbringers starts being about a lot of things all at once.
Because Emet-Selch got impatient.
Emet-Selch got impatient and gave up, which is an interesting thing.
It's so sad how he literally was at the finish line.
The warrior of light was gorging at 1:34 a.m. eating all of these olives and starting to get a little bit queasy. And it's 2:12, and they're like, "I'm gonna go back for more olive." And Emet-Selch's like, "No, the fuck you are! You're gonna die of food poisoning."
Die right now. Yeah, and it's very interesting. This is when everything starts kind of coming together and being about like a lot of things.
So because like your warrior of light, you know, you beat Vothra, you beat Innocence, who's the last light warden, and you're like, ah, cool, and you absorb that light warden's light, and you are very sick. Somebody please help my son. I am spending $3,600 a month on Fantasias. Can someone who is good at the economy please help me here?
So you have Fantasias.
No. But Emet-Selch is like, well, see, there's your problem. Is I was willing to go along with this because, like, I kind of figured this was going to happen from the beginning because you're just like a dude, and that's like 5 light wardens, and you know, like, what's going to happen to you is that you're going to go become a light warden because that's what happens when your ether gets so fucked up. I've just been kind of waiting because y'all seemed really confident in this plan, so I figured, hey, I don't know, maybe you know something I don't. But it turns out that you were wrong. So I'm gonna shoot this cowboy now. But the thing is, hang out in my underwater palace.
The thing is, Grahatia is like, don't worry, gang, I can fix it.
Yeah. So
and then Emet-Selch is like, nope.
Yeah, he acts like he's gonna do a thing, and he's like, haha, I've been using you this whole time.
It's really funny.
And immediately I'll say, it's like, okay, what's the deal here? And Urianger is like, oh, he's lying because he doesn't want us to feel bad when this kills him. He's like, come on, Urianger.
Come on, guys, can I have one thing?
You promised you would.
I'm trying to be cool.
Nay.
Urianger, this was my moment.
You should have worked a little harder.
Thou dost get fucked.
Unfortunately, you must continue to be alive so that you may attempt that again later.
He's like, don't worry, guys. It's okay if my story ends here. I was always a minor character. And then Emet-Selch shows up with his Endwalker contract.
Like, no, you're still going to be in this game, so I have to cap you now.
Unfortunately, Emet-Selch is like, unfortunately for you, you're not Skoshikawa's favorite because you're a weird, handsome version of an FF3 character.
Why is your name... All of your background notes say your name was going to be Desh, and that's not a very cat-like name. And then I looked up all of this concept art, and good God, what an ugly cat.
You were going to be a blue bald man at some point. I guess you're lucky. You got the handsome genes. Good for you.
Well, he's already turning blue, so, you know, I mean, something like that.
Oh, so, well, that's the old concept art creeping back in. Don't worry about it.
So, we're all done with that. And you do yet another Gondor calls for aid, and Bismarck shows up. And that's a thing that we just don't want to, like... It makes your head hurt just kind of thinking about it for too long.
Don't worry about it.
It instead gives you another zone, and it is the slowest, most beautiful build-up to the... I think one of the parts that kind of like, for a lot of people who make it this far, becomes kind of a turning point, and this stops being one of your favorite games to Shadowbringers is my favorite JRPG.
Yeah,
for absolutely. Sure.
So as part of the setup, Emet-Selch's like, well, hey, since you're gonna die and turn into a Light Warden anyway, come hang out with me in my underwater palace. Have fun figuring out how to get there, idiot. And then he leaves, and they're like, well, how do we get to the underwater palace? And then someone's like, well, what if there was a Bismarck? And you're like, surely there's not a Bismarck who's just been sitting in a lake for 10,000 years. Just
How can there be a
twiddling his
Bismarck?
thumbs. And you go to the lake and there's a Bismarck there. And he's like, "Hey, what's up? It's me, Bismarck." And you're like, "Can you put us underwater?" And he's like, "Sure."
Yeah,
And it worked really loud, and I guess that's it.
You seem cool. Get in.
"So how are we going to breathe underwater, Bismarck?" "You're not. I'm just going to make a giant air bubble. Won't that disturb the ecology?" "Yeah."
Fuck 'em.
Fuck clams. I don't like them.
Fuck them kids.
I never liked those fucking barnacles anyway. Oh my god.
I wanted to get down there and just see a bunch of fish flopping on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Ondo and me have beef.
They've had this shit coming for a long time.
You fell asleep in the wrong coral reef, motherfucker. I'm kind of doing a slowed down Moon and Night again, which is just my voice for every supernatural entity in this video game.
The best part about playing video games with Saturn is that any character with a deep voice will
Slowly become
trend
Moon and Night.
steadily towards Ignignoked.
Every fucking time.
This Ondo ecology has nothing on my Bismarck ecology. All my fish are cool and love being in giant air bubbles.
Oh fuck.
We can't breathe. We can't breathe the air. Well, that sounds like a personal problem.
I can't breathe.
My patented Bismarck air is so much more nutritious than your Ondo water. So you get down there and the Ondo are like, "Hey, this shit's fucked up, by the way. You kind of like messed up our whole spot. Anyway, by the way, there's some weird like blacksmith guy with a lot of hair who lives in a bathysphere like next door. Do you want to go hang out with him?" And you're like, "Sure."
Hey, they're like, "Hey, do you want to go get your level 80 gear?"
And then you
realize all
him,
your level 80 gear looks like dog shit, and you're like, ugh.
and then you approach him and his head swivels like 180 degrees like an owl, and he just says, "Go finish your role quest."
Yeah. I know you've been neglecting them. Go do your role quests.
We haven't talked about them much, and I think Ben has not done all of them.
I've
yet.
only done one.
Yeah,
So-
they're all cool. Some of them have like these, like tie into the MSQ stuff.
I appreciate the concept of shifting from every class gets their own unique storyline to your role gets one, and then you get a cap off of your job quest.
And it ties in
yeah.
kind of to the MSQ, which I
Yeah.
much prefer.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
like, it makes sense because, like, from the first part, like, only having to do 4 and then 5 role quests as opposed to having to do, like, 17 job quests.
Right.
Like, yeah, of course they're going to do that. But the other part is, like, by Shadowbringers, by the point you're at when you get here, you're already level 80. You'll eventually
You're like
get
an
level
unkillable
90.
god.
No one can teach you shit about combat that you don't
Correct.
already
Yeah,
know.
it's because I picked up Monk really late, and the disparity of having to go back to like, oh, you're just a little baby throwing your fists around.
Yeah.
Here's how you make sure you don't put your thumb on the inside, keep it on the outside. To the Warrior of Light who has been killing gods and dragons and all sorts of things.
The Warrior of Light who accidentally sneezed and killed a child earlier that day. Like,
yeah.
and because also like part of that shift is for the role quest is like it's not even teaching you about how to do your role. It's like, hey, you know how to tank, right? Come tank for us. We need a tank over
Yeah.
here. And
Right.
It's like, well, okay, since you asked so politely.
Sure.
But yeah, no,
Me and my favorite weapon, Big Dick God Killer, will help you out of whatever insignificant jam you happen to find yourself in.
The healer one is the best one. I know Ben hasn't done it yet, so we're going to keep it vague, but everybody is right. The healer one is the best one, hands down.
Yep.
You get Giot. Giot's great. And then you
Giot
get,
rules.
You get really cool like lore and world content with her. I think second place for me is the caster one.
Yep.
I don't care as much about the cast of the caster one, but like it's actually like the most relevant to the A plot and like the continuing lore and stuff like that in a way that feels really significant. The DPS one, tank ones are okay.
They're fine. The tank one. Honestly, the tank one is better than the DPS one because the DPS one concerns the whims of a spoiled rich boy. So who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
The tank one feels like a natural extension of the Dark Knight one.
Yeah,
Like,
but like,
100%.
And again, because this is the Natsuko Ishikawa DLC, she's like, well, some people didn't play Dark Knight, and those people are idiots, so I'm just gonna do Dark Knight again.
yeah.
And it feels really empty because it feels like 60 through 65 of the Dark Knight quest. Like not even 60 to 70, it's just 60 to 65.
We're
really
just doing like a little chunk of Dark Knight. And it's like, okay, I get
It's
it.
like-
Granson's
it's
very
like
sad
not-
about his dead wife. We
And they're
know.
like, okay, not even the good part of Dark Knight. And you're like, okay. Like,
I like Granson for being a very reasonable Dark Knight, though.
Mhm.
Like he didn't get the memo about having to be brooding all the time.
He did get the memo where it is about the power of love.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's
yeah, and
like,
he's like, I have decided to get revenge for my dead wife, and after that, I don't really care.
yeah, I'm gonna go, be an adventurer. Sounds like he's like, I got my closure, so I am all set. And meanwhile, Frey in the afterlife is like, what do you mean you got closure?
He has the opposite of the Warrior of Light's progression, where the Warrior of Light progression is you start as a paladin and then become a Dark Knight because you lose faith in the ability of systems to work. But his is the opposite, where he's like, cool, I got revenge. I'm gonna go be normal now.
Like that feels great. I don't need to do this anymore.
Stage 5, acceptance.
All I really am going to say is, just like I held Saturn at gunpoint for it. We both held Sara at gunpoint for it.
It's true.
Then-
I appreciate it.
Then you have to do the role quests eventually.
You gotta do all of them
I'm gonna
eventually.
do them all. I have a bunch of classes. I just need to get them to that level.
Yeah, the
Fair
only
enough.
thing, what I'll say about it is immediately relevant to what post Endwalker stuff
It's
is going to
insane,
be.
actually.
I called
It is-
it. I can't
Yeah.
call
Called
it.
it. You
I'll
fucking
get
called
there.
it.
I'll get there. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But the point is, after that, you finally. We talked about how you go to Bioshock and Yulmore, but now you go to real Bioshock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You walk around a corner and find an Art Deco metropolis underwater, and then Emet-Selch is like, could a depressed person make this? And you're
And
like,
it's the best
"Yes."
part of the game. It's the exact moment where Final Fantasy XIV, like we said, shifts from being a really good MMORPG to the best Final Fantasy. And maybe one of the best JRPGs you'll ever play in your entire life. It is insane. Like, the switch is that instant because it's such a dramatic tone shift and such a dramatic setting shift. They've done such a good job of like really keeping their cards close to their chest and being like, well, nobody has seen anything of this scale in this game ever.
Mhm.
Right?
You want to talk about internal trauma about dealing with the inevitability of death?
Mm-hmm.
Ha 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 ha! Here's a whole area that is a day away from being obliterated.
It's
And
fantastic.
how would you cope with that situation, player?
Yeah.
And I
How would
went,
you-
I would rather not think about this right now.
And then
How-
Great.
How would you cope with the situation knowing that this actually already happened 12,000 years ago,
Mhm.
and your endeavors to go back and unfuck this situation have been doomed from day one?
Correct.
And all you can do is reflect on how good things used to be,
right.
and how you will never know this joy again in the rest of your life. And it's like,
Fantastic.
damn, bitch, okay. It's
Calm
one of those things
down.
like, when I was going through this like a year or two ago as like a solo player, I did not have the benefit or luxury of having a bunch of obsessed weirdos to push me through it. But like my experience going through that was turning that corner, seeing Amarat, and just going, "Oh, this game is really as special as everyone said it is."
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, okay.
100%,
That's
yeah.
where the switch happens. If
I
the switch-
spent a solid 20 minutes just like sitting and like staring at it just because like the scale of
Yeah,
it is so huge.
I spent all of Shadowbringers going, well, this seems pretty good, but like I don't know why people are like so ride or die for this game. And then you get to Amarat, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I get it. All right, cool.
it's amazing how they managed to keep that a secret for as long as they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm surprised that I've never seen screenshots of Amarat.
But for the most part, FF14 players are relatively considerate about untagged
Yeah.
spoilers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Relatively.
They do tend to be pretty good about it.
Every community has its outliers who will post untagged spoilers just apropos of nothing and be like, well, enjoy. This is a payoff of like 500 hours of gameplay that you don't get to have now. But generally speaking, FF14 is really good about that stuff.
And then Emet-Selch goes, "Would you kindly come to the DMV?"
Yeah.
So here's the thing, and we talked about this, but I'm just really, really baffled as to what Emet-Selch's logic is, because he tells you, hey, come here when you're about to die and turn into a big monster so that you can have the peace and luxury of dying and you don't have to be embarrassed when you do it.
Mhm.
But then when you get here, he makes you wait at the DMV and fill out paperwork?
Yeah, of course.
I think he thinks you're going to hollow out like in Dark Souls. Like, you're just going to find out you have to fill out paperwork at the DMV and every last scrap of your ego will disintegrate to dust.
You turn into that monster right then and there.
I think he wanted you
To come alone, for one.
Yeah.
Like, if you had showed up alone, he probably wouldn't have put you through the rigmarole of doing paperwork.
No, but he
should have
seemed-
put your dumbass friend.
Well, no,
no,
but he seems surprised when he sees your friends.
I think part of it, and this might be me reaching a little bit, but as the game slowly eventually revealed posthumously for him, he knew almost from the onset that he met you that you were somebody very special to him, and he was hoping that you would, in your last moments, remember and could die in peace with probably one of your closest friends in the world.
Right.
I think that's what he wanted, but he didn't quite understand. He still, throughout all of it, he never quite understood, or didn't want to understand, I guess more accurately, that everybody around you were still functionally a person.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, I think really the thing is that he doesn't understand, and this is from his perspective as being the guy who labored in the Minecraft depression mines for like 12,000 years, is that the people who you are surrounded by care deeply about you, and they're not going to let you walk off into the ocean alone, whether or not they think there's anything they can do for you. They wouldn't ever dare, like, let you die alone and afraid. And he's like, well, that's crazy. I don't know anyone who would do that for me.
Yeah. What it ends up being, it feels like he just... It's him, and it's a really good reflection of Xenos, too. What I really like about the villains we're getting in 14, because this applies to a lot of them. They can't comprehend your mindset in any capacity.
Right.
Xenos thinks you are like him.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't understand that you're doing this for, like, you're going on all these adventures and you're fighting all these things for the betterment of other people. He thinks you are like him and you are doing this for your own self-fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And Emet-Selch can't comprehend the idea that the people close to you will want to be there with you when you when you transform.
There's also the far scarier implication for him, since he does handle it so calmly when he does end up dying in that trial boss fight that you have almost immediately after, is he's goading you to bring your friends along and end him.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is very much like it is very possible that a lot of it is just a front so that he can commit suicide.
Yeah.
Because, again, also at this point, as I kind of alluded to earlier, the Warrior of Light has killed most of the people who he were the only people who he had left after the whole end of his entire existence. At this point in the story, it's just him and Elidibus, and also a kind of sort of some freak who you'll hear more about, I think, on the next episode of FF14, whenever we get to it. But, not as much him, because I don't think Emet-Selch really liked him either. But the point is, he doesn't have a whole lot of people, and what people he had were people that you killed, and also you used to be someone who he cared deeply about.
Right.
In the color of your soul, so to speak, which is to say that the big reveal that happens here as you, in part, meeting at the DMV, you meet Hythlodaeus, who
Best
is
character.
like I love Hythlodaeus, who is a simulacrum of someone who Emet-Selch knew in life, and it's like, oh yeah, you like. You remind me of someone who's very dear to me. Let's call you my new old friend. And part of what you learn in sort of like pseudo-optional writing that you can read after you finish Shadowbringers, but is like important to understand, is like part of the thing with Hades and with Hythlodaeus to a lesser extent, is that they can literally just see the color of a person's soul, just straight up, and they can like identify people like by their souls. And the thing that they will reveal to you in more explicit detail in the post-patch stuff as we get to it, but that you kind of get the hint of right now, is that you are someone that they know. Right. Or at least your soul is. And like, again, like very clearly, he wants you to remember that. And so when he calls you down here, it's either, I'm going to watch you die, because I've already lost so many people who are close to me, and it's fitting that I may as well be here to send you off too, or you're finally going to do me the dignity of killing me.
Right, absolutely. And yeah, it's this kind of like slow buildup of and maybe to a certain degree, like making you go through that, aforementioned rigmarole is to kind of impart, that it is important. He says, remember that we lived. An important thing is to like interact with what kind of fragile simulacra of Amarot he's been able to make, because like it is an interesting thematic thing. Every other location you go to in any part of Final Fantasy XIV, after you clear enough of the story, that area populates with side quests, right?
Right.
Like it populates with a shit ton of side quests. So many you can't see the map. It's really annoying. Except for Amarot, right?
Yeah.
Amarot only has its ether current quests, and none of those ether current quests have follow-up quests the way other ether current quests in the zone do. So it's like it gives an extremely it gives this impression that like this is like Emet-Selch is an all powerful sorcerer of Eld who can replicate all kinds of things and build this whole city, but you can't replicate the people for too long. Like they are just essentially computer programs running on a loop. The only real outlier is Hythlodaeus, because Hythlodaeus is somebody he knew extremely well, and everybody else is just kind of running on like AI subroutines, if you want to put it like that. And so there's no sub-quest, there's no side quest, so there's no way for him to kind of impart like any knowledge of what their world used to be like, except through kind of making you go through these steps, so that like there is at least some semblance in somebody's mind somewhere that this place like existed and had rules and laws and was like, by his estimation, a utopia, because everybody lived forever and there was no poverty or hunger, and everybody could just sit around and make shit all day. That was the whole purpose of the society.
There were, however, dozens and dozens and dozens of cubuses littering
the streets. Tons of fucking cubuses, and people keep making sharks for some godforsaken reason. Don't worry about it.
That's mostly a meme at this point.
Yeah.
Everything becomes sharks by the end.
We Amarots came up with better memes than you simple mortals ever did.
And it's just a shark.
We invented various different kinds of sharks, you see. Our Amarot sharks are infinitely superior and more diverse than your silly Eorzean sharks.
I just really want to see a very tiny Ascian running around stealing things while Emet-Selch talks about how superior his sharks are.
Oh god.
But no, I do think.
Yeah, I mean, I stole all their Fantasia.
That's Fandaniel. Never mind.
Yeah, you're right. Oh god, what are we saying? He's right there.
Oh dear, what's this? It seems I've stolen all your Fantasias. This might sell for $200-300.
But no, I think that Emet-Selch's desire to preserve, or to resurrect his society, like his culture, like the whole thing, the big twist that you learn in all of this, we didn't really talk about it, but like it's every shard, every calamity has been the result of a shard combining with the source.
Correct.
Yes.
Right? And we learn that these are not random happenstance. This is what the Ascians' plan was.
Mhm.
This is like we've learned that they had a plan. They were involved in the calamities, but we put the pieces together. We finally learn why they're doing this, because it will allow them to bring back the people that were sacrificed to form Zodiark. Right?
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's vaguely the idea.
It's the hope at the very least.
Yeah.
It's what they wrote down on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And the hypocrisy involved in it, in that they are genociding these planets to bring back their own people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's almost like that could be something that you could put into writing, and I'm assuming that's what's going to happen in Endwalker.
Very likely.
Seems like that's kind of like a concept that none of the Scions really brought up, and that feels kind of weird.
I don't know. It sure would be crazy if we have referred to Endwalker as Shadowbringers too on multiple occasions. I sure hope that the plot threads being raised here never come up again. They feel so adequately resolved.
But the thing that interested me about this, and I just like before you move on, but like usually, I said this like in passing with you guys, where it's like, oh, Emet-Selch thinks he's the good guy, and you're the villains for stopping him, right?
Mhm.
Correct.
Usually, when you have a villain that says, I'm the hero, I'm doing the right thing, they at least admit that they are staining their hands, or they are sacrificing, they are taking on the burden of being the, quote, bad guy by doing the thing that you don't have the heart to do, right? Emet-Selch thinks he's doing pest control.
Absolutely, yeah. There's literally a line that says, I do not consider you human, ergo, if I kill you, I have not committed murder. It's a jokey joke line, but also no, it isn't.
Yeah, because again, like he thinks he's doing pest control, because from his perspective, like from our perspective, I guess, what if the four of us were doing this podcast, Ben? And inexplicably, just out of nowhere, by this complete tragedy, 3 of us got turned into several colonies of ants.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that you could bring us back is if you poured Drano down every single one of those ant piles. And then eventually we'd reconstitute into the 4 of us.
Right.
You would not think about the lives of those ants for a second, I hope.
No.
I
hope anyway.
Yeah.
Please don't let me be turned into ants.
Well, the thing is, I don't have a lot of Drano right now, so I just couldn't do it. Sorry.
Oh, I see. You'll have to prioritize Sara or Oats first, I'm sure, and then you'll come back for me when you go to the store to get more Drano.
Well, by then all the ants will have scurried off, and then what am I going to do? I'm going to hunt down every single ant?
That's what you gotta do.
So I guess to explain like the rejoining a little bit more, it's like, so if 2 pieces of like some like 2 pieces of reality are tipped in the right direction, they both kind of reconstitute into the same bubble, and it kills so many people all at once that they're allowed to reincarnate with their souls ever so slightly more intact, ever so slightly more healed from what they were. And from his perspective, and from all of the Ascians' perspective, they see it as healing, because they don't care about the lives of what you are, because you were literally a 7th, a 14th, maybe even smaller, because they do mention the source is actually bigger than the other shards.
The people in the source at this point are also like a full half of an Ascian because of the 7 rejoinings that have already happened.
Right, exactly.
So it's from their perspective, it is a very horrible thing that they are doing, but it is also ultimately healing horribly fractured and damaged souls that you can't see. It's like literally like you're introduced to a society where everybody is born without one leg, and they all have peg legs, and
And also
None
their
of them
peg
are
legs are sapient and eating them very slowly.
No. It's they all have peg legs, but they all seem to implicitly understand that they need 2 legs to walk, but they don't understand that not in literally any other portion of society you have both legs.
Right.
Yeah.
There's also a significant thing here too to talk about, which is that he did attempt to. This is another thing that was kind of like, in some of the fics like that they like published, after the fact, like part of it's like he did try to do the whole humanity thing the once, where he's like, I don't know, it's been a long time and these people are making it happen. Maybe I just need to give up and just let them figure it out.
Sure.
And this is when he's being, Solstice Galvus. And he has a son, and basically explicitly his son dies at age 20 of malaria.
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, this was a fucking mistake.
This was a huge fucking mistake because look, I let myself love this thing, this little fragile thing, and look, see, I was right. You are all so small and breakable and so easy to kill, and why would I let any of you kind of keep persisting like this in this very fragile existence where something so simple as a virus could kill you so young, so young.
The other thing that makes me think about too is there's, I think, significant text for the reason Xenos is like that is because Solus Galvus was his granddad, and his real dad died when he was too young to really know what to do about it. So by all accounts, he was probably raised by his granddad, who is Emet-Selch.
Yeah.
That explains everything.
And, it is very interesting, because this whole going back to the whole, Emet-Selch had a son, he loved that son, and that son died.
Well,
so
excuse me, Varys is the one who's like that for that reason. Varys is like that because Emet-Selch is the person
that's
he was raised
literally
by.
That's literally the whole point of that side story is the one where he's talking about how he had a son and he loved him. That is all part of a conversation where Varys literally asks him hey, why don't you care about me? And he says, I don't care about you. I detest your physical form. The way you are, disgusts me, basically.
Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Grandpa.
Without explaining to your grandson the whole thing where you have been, a ghost of an immortal ancient society for 12,000 years, you're just like, do I need to start wearing bigger shoulder pads? Do I need a funny hat? Is that what you want from me?
Do you want me to start playing baseball?
Do I need more jowls? I could get more jowls. And Emet-Selch's like, I'm sorry, I'm listening to my dramas on the TV. Please stop talking to me.
And that's why Varys hates theater. He had the son and he loved his son, and when this son dies, he gives up, which is literally exactly why he reacts the way he does on the top of Mount Gulg, because he did the thing again. He fell into his own trap again of allowing himself to have any hope, because he said
he let himself care, and then he saw you contract fatal malaria from the ghost cloud, and he's like, well, I'm not letting myself ever be sad again. I just have to shoot you.
Yeah.
It's like, got attached, I'm gonna fix that, and then he cocks gun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically. It's depressing.
It is.
But that is Emet-Selch in a nutshell.
New bespoke forms of sadness at every single turn of Shadowbringers, where it's he had hope, and he gave, basically like with his son, he gave up too soon. He decided, no, this is a doomed enterprise, and I'm going to go back to the original plan. Never mind the fact that the original plan is also a doomed enterprise at this point.
You can't. The thing that always struck me about this is that he can't succeed.
No, the 13th is fucked.
Yeah, the 13th is gone. He can't succeed.
Yeah,
There's no
so
winning.
part of what they talked about is like, oh, the first one we tried, we didn't like understand implicitly that rejoining is a thing, so we had to do some experimentation. The first one that we tried to do was with the 13th. We didn't understand at the time that you have to do the simultaneous calamities on both the shard and the source. So as a result, we did a calamity on the source, or we did a calamity on the 13th, and now the 13th is just a fucking wasteland. It's just all demons all the time, and we can't actually rejoin it now.
There's nothing. The plan can never succeed at this point,
Right?
Because the world will never be whole.
Yeah, and so that was the first one. So it's been 10,000 years, and
the entire time all for nothing.
It's been for nothing. So of course you sit at the bottom of an ocean and you reconstruct a whole city.
I think there's also some resonance too, without like saying too much about it, is that a big part of why he made the decisions he did and gave up when he did is because the idea of having feelings is just too difficult for him.
Yep.
Why would I choose to have feelings and contend with feelings when I can simply kill my problems?
I think what's he builds this society, he builds this fake city underwater, but it's empty, and it's got these shells of like fake people, right?
Yeah, they're not even ghosts; they're his memories of people.
The thing that surprises me and like is very poignant, I think, and especially coming off of Horizon, I think, which is a weird parallel to connect them to, but like, there's no culture down there. Like, there's no culture in Amarat.
You can glean a lot from like the 3 people you can talk to at the very least.
He wants you to remember that they once lived, but he himself doesn't remember daily life.
Right.
He doesn't remember what it was like. He remembers that there were people who had arguments, and there was debates, and there was
the DMV,
there were
cubuses.
He remembers that there were experiments, and there were tests and building things. But every building is so empty in ways that remind me of Nier Automata.
Yeah.
It's just like these because you go in the ruined buildings of Nier Replicant, Nier Automata, and they're just barren. Yeah. There's no signs of that people live there besides like a file cabinet or a couch. You know?
Or I found a thing that I can realize from lore text as a Game Boy.
Yeah. Like, you know, and then it just reminded me of that whole thing where like part of the tragedy of Horizon Zero Dawn's world is that the culture is gone. All that knowledge is gone in an instant. And that's like what really I feel is the real tragedy for Emet-Selch, is that he just doesn't remember the world he's trying to desperately cling to.
And that's a tragedy we see, since we've can move on probably to the post-patch stuff a bit. The tragedy we see mirrored in Elidibus as well. Yeah, which is to say he had the responsibility of being the heart of Zodiark, so that, you know, whenever they can finally bring everyone back, he remembers everyone and can make things the way they are. And you realize that he's been at this for so long that he really doesn't remember who it is he's supposed to be thinking about anymore.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
And it's just like, it's the ultimate, like, it is the thing of like, okay, so there's already a defeatist angle, right? Of like, oh, this plan of theirs could never succeed. But there is at least like the grain of hope there, like, well, maybe if we persist, eventually we can figure something out or get something close enough. But what you see with Elidibus is this idea of like, no, there is a time limit, and you've already elapsed it.
Oh yeah,
because you can't even
thousands of years. Yeah,
you can't even really remember what it is you were fighting for to begin with.
The tragedy of a villain who is going through the motions and knows that he's doing something important, but he can't remember why.
Yeah,
it's to protect the people. Which people?
The people.
You know, my people from Amarat. Is that how I pronounce it? Amarat?
Right.
It's like, oh, bud.
Oh, dear. Yeah. So, I mean, like, at this point, it is for like, all of them, because, I mean, you know, it is funny that retroactively they even managed to make La Habrea interesting, which is stunning.
Yeah, the explanation for why he's the cackling madman in A Realm Reborn is just, oh, that dude went crazy.
He lost his. It's been 10,000 years. Nothing has worked, and they are. It has been 10,000 years, and they're only halfway done.
To like part of like the whole thing of with immediately prior to his downfall is like the other members, the other Ascians being like, dude, you're really gonna try and do another calamity on the source? The last one was 5 years ago.
It's been such a short amount of time, and it's like, yeah, of course.
You gotta get this moving.
Because it has been 10,000 years, and they are only halfway done. So at that pace, it's going to take another 10,000 years.
They're only halfway done, and they could probably never be 100% done.
And they'll never be 100% done. Yeah, exactly.
So all three of them went through varying stages of breakdown.
Yep.
Every single Ascian has a different DSM-5 diagnosis.
Elidibus is... I almost find his approach slightly more compelling than Emet-Selch's, because I think it's inherently more like Emet-Selch's is tragic, no doubt about it, but I think the idea of realizing that you've forgotten why you're doing something is more tragic, because he was helpless against it.
Sure, yeah of course.
Emet-Selch got in his own way, and he got impatient and he got frustrated. And he actively chose to keep pushing forward. But Elidibus didn't have a choice, and it just happened naturally.
Well, I don't know. I feel like at that point, I don't think any of them, like especially, Emet-Selch and Elidibus both, don't really have a choice at that point. Like Emet-Selch still has his mind, but he literally says, like, right before you do the final dungeon of Shadowbringers, it's this idea that, like, no, you don't understand. I have already sunk so much time into this.
Yeah, no,
so much effort.
What I mean is he didn't have he actively chose to continue to press onward,
right.
And he didn't like when his son died, he chose to go back to the initial plan.
Yeah, but this wasn't... We should also point out, that wasn't even the first time he's attempted to give up. He's done it a bunch of different times, and the implication is that he knows that poor Elidibus can't remember anything, and he is fond of that person. Elidibus is a friend of his, and the option of him giving up hurts, because that would leave Elidibus alone.
Yeah.
And it would mean that everything that Elidibus, who again, like, another little writing thing, like, Elidibus was very young for an Ascian when he took up this job. He was like, I think he was like 19 for a race of people who choose when they die, and it's usually not until they're like hundreds or thousands of years old, right?
Right.
But it's like, and so it's like, okay, I could give up, but then me giving up means telling Elidibus and La Habrea and Nabriales and all these other people who I care about and who I've been in this shit for 10,000 years about, no, we should just stop. All this was for nothing.
Right. Everybody is like elbow deep in a sunk cost fallacy, and at this point, like, there is no going back, because to give up means to, like, hey, it means to, like, accept that everybody you ever knew and loved is dead and is never coming back. Look,
and that
we're here again.
All this pain and headache and heartache and unimaginable mass murder was for nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you would have to give up means to give up on, like, everybody you ever knew, and it means to reconcile with the fact that you have been the personal architect of incredible suffering.
An unimaginable amount of human suffering, impossible to qualify.
Yeah.
Right. And so you just kind of have to keep pressing on until you do finally, and, like, you can't even quit. You have to make the decision to be like, I am going to goad this god killer into killing one more god.
And I think with Elidibus, the it's especially thematic, for one thing, because he takes on the body of Ardbert. right?
Who at this point, Ardbert's soul has kind of done a little mini rejoining with you.
Yeah.
If I remember.
We didn't even talk about Ardbert earlier.
No, we didn't.
We have so much to talk
I think
about.
Sarah alluded to him vaguely in the Atome Gang comparison, referring to
Ardbert-
one of your three options as being a ghost.
really quick, Ardbert coming back was great. I love Ardbert. He's a fantastic character.
I love Dempsey. What a great character. What a great actor.
The Warriors of Darkness fucked off at the end of like the post-patch for Heaven's Word, and they show up here and you're like, Ardbert, and then you see Ardbert, and you're like, hey Ardbert, you have chin hair now, also where's all your friends? He's like, well, I'm a ghost and all my friends got turned into Sin Eaters, which is what the role quests are about. And he like kind of hangs out and is sad. And also he has a horse dog who I love very much, whose name is Seto.
But Elidibus taking on Ardbert is great because the idea of Elidibus being there was once someone who was, for all intents and purposes, the hope of a society, right? Mm-hmm. But you look at him now and there's nothing there. He's forgotten so much that it's just hollow now. Mm-hmm. So him taking on Ardbert, who went through basically the same thing,
right, is
just very thematic and poetic.
Yeah.
And also because Ardbert, if you are someone who is like, oh, I'm going to do a canon, Warrior Light, whatever, Ardbert is explicitly designed to look like the Warrior of Light in the teaser cutscenes. So he is also taking on, in a certain way, your appearance.
Yeah. And it, one of the Scions has a moment where they're talking about how like Ardbert's legacy has been changed and warped and whatnot, and how people have forgotten what he was like, what really happened. Mm-hmm. The name of the Warrior of Light has been dragged through the mud, and that's going to happen with the Scions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Emet-Selch tells you to remember, and you will, but realistically, as the generations go on, that's going to stop.
Actually, he's aware of that too. Yeah. He says, like, whoever wins this fight between you and me, like this fight between, like, you and your friends in Hades, like, whoever wins, they get to be the hero and the other one gets to be the villain. Like, those are the stakes.
And I think tying this all in with the initial themes of, like, the inevitability of death and, like, preparing yourself for it, and that idea of, like, you can pass on your legacy, but over time your legacy is going to change and fade.
Sure.
And part of accepting your death is accepting that part of it, is that, you can pass it on to your children and your children's children, but the children after that are not going to know you.
Right. Yeah, and that's definitely, like, a huge part of it, and it's the coming to terms with that. And with kind of the inevitability of what's going to happen. Like, the whole march to Amarot is the Warrior of Light saying, like, okay, well, I'm probably fucked. Like, there is no fixing how much light is in me, right? And so they're just making the decision to go, like, okay, it's better to do something than sit on my ass and wait for it to come. And we'll just see what happens as a result of that.
And that's that's why Amarot is so good. Like, you go there, and then when you go back there and you do the boss rush basically with Elidibus, Faded Memories, it really expresses once again that, like, they can't comprehend your mindset.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Elidibus is trying to play on every bad thing that's happened to you. Like, the people that you've lost, the people that have sacrificed themselves for you. And, trying to play into that idea of, like, was it all worth it? But it was, because you still saved the day at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's expressed in the Hero's Gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's such good parallels.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, the whole build up to See to Sacrifice is itself like great. It's really like, I mean, we talked a lot about Graha, and we like to talk about our good little boy, but also that is where Graha really gets to kind of do hero shit with you, which is basically all he's ever wanted to do.
Also, if you're lucky, Hildebrand's there.
If you're lucky, Hildebrand's there.
I'm so sorry you didn't catch him.
I'm probably gonna do Heroes Gauntlet again. I would love to see Hildebrand there.
For reference, on the first run Sara did of it, Hildebrand was there. Hildebrand being there is about a 1 in 25 chance.
Yeah, blessed run, because we also had a really good Seed of Sacrifice run immediately afterwards. So Hildebrand blessed my run through the end of Shadowbringer. But yeah,
Who am I? Who am I?
Why am I surrounded by all these freaks? And it's like, Hildebrand, you're also a freak. Shut up.
This feels so familiar. I guess I must pose dramatically.
But like, yeah, the other thing is, so, you know, the build up to Seed of Sacrifice, is like, I don't know, it's really good, and it's also, if, you know, we're talking about just all of the burden, you know, put on Elidibus to try and to make it. The Seed of Sacrifice is, like we said, it's the trial where you lose because you're too busy crying through all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so good.
It has the great moment where you're so like Elidibus has basically through the power of like piloting around Ardbert's body and being like, hey everybody, let's be warriors of light. Warriors of light are so cool. Has turned himself into a primal of the first warrior of light, who you immediately recognize as like, oh, it's the guy from the cover art from FF1, the extremely cool Inio Asano design with the not Inio Asano, that's
Yoshitaka Amano.
Yoshitaka Amano. Inio Asano's the author of Oyasumi Punpun. But the incredibly good Amano artwork of like the guy with the cool 2-horn helmet, and it's just him directly. It's like, oh, okay, FF1, radical. And so you fight him, and he's all like, fuck this, I'm gonna banish you to the shadow dimension. I'm gonna just send you to die. I'm gonna kill you. And he just does it. And he's like, well, that's cool. And then he turns around because he's gonna walk away. And then suddenly, who's that? There's a mysterious Amaratine who just has the normal model, and he summons you and your 7 friends back from hell. And he's like, hey, what the hell? You're not allowed to do that. And then he does Emet-Selch's sassy little hand wave as he walks away into a live stream, and Elidibus is like, Emet-Selch,
you son of a bitch! And then you start crying.
Yeah.
And you just have a hard time getting through the rest of the fight because it's got a lot of mechanics, too.
And then he does an LB4 to you, and you're like, hey, how come I can't do that? This isn't fair.
The best thing ever in any video game, and this is why video games are such a cool medium, is that you can just do shit like that sometimes, and you can be like, oh yeah, you want to know the power scale? He has an LB4.
He has the 4 little bars over his head to let you know you're extremely fucked. You better use that tank limit break right now.
Also, funnily enough, his party that shows up to help him is like the cast of FF4, I think.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I was like, oh, you're so cool. This is the closest thing you get in FF4, in FF14, at least for Shadowbringers, of being like hey, what if you fought a player party?
Mm-hmm.
What if that was your trials, you fought a player party, and it's the Warrior of Light from FF1 and then the entire cast of FF4?
It's fantastic.
So fucking cool.
Literally kill the protagonist of the first game. Fuck you.
And then you do that, and then fucking Catboy husband traps him inside the Crystal Tower just to let him burn out the rest of his ether there, because it's like how you deal with an Ascian.
Yeah.
One other thing, however, we gotta talk about real quick, because I don't know if Ben knows it. I don't know who out there listening in TV land knows it. So the song that plays when you do the Seed of Sacrifice is "To the Edge," which is a great song. Was also, speaking of death and legacy, was composed while Soken was going through chemotherapy.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Touching.
Holy shit, that's right, I forgot.
Yeah.
That is the song that Master Soken was working on in his hospital bed.
I remember that story.
In the hospital. Yeah. So
it is also the result of that part of that song is what it was used for. So, like, you know how when you boot up FF14 now, you get a little bit of the Tales of Lost and Fire. Like, that's an Endwalker song.
Of course.
But whenever it was in Shadowbringers, you'd get the home, riding home.
Yeah.
And it was just a result of a lot of very fun mondegreens, my favorite of which being Ho, Lolly Ho.
My personal favorite was Pog, Mighty Pog.
extremely pod.
Extremely great song. Soken is a goat. That's all I have to say about that.
If any of you want to actually listen to that, in the title screen you can actually go to older expansion packs as the title screen, so you can get to see what Shadowbringers look like.
Good, because I'll be honest, I'm getting a little sick of that song.
I'll be honest, I kind of want to go back and change it to the Shadowbringers one, because it's something about the majesty of just hearing home riding home when I boot up the game is like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
This is meat. Yeah. This is meat. I like it.
It's tasty. The food is delicious, folks. So yeah, even the kind of meta-textual narrative of Shadowbringers is like, we are going to have a conversation about death today, people. It's something that Natsuko Ishikawa is extremely interested in talking about, considering how much of it is also in like Dark Knight and pretty much everything she's ever written for Final Fantasy XIV. I mean,
and I guess where we can actually cut the like plot play by play is that through a convoluted series of events, you figure out a way to get everyone back to the source.
Yay!
Because they weren't sure about that. And also you get Gurlha back to the source, and he gets a cute little glow up, and he's like, I'm gonna be your husband now. And you're like, yes, you will, little man. And then you go on an adventure.
I'm gonna take you to my cave now. And we get
Hey, that's my line.
And we get possibly, so like a thing that's been like a running thing through Shadowbringers and becomes extremely a thing in Endwalker that fucking owns is, what if you just hung out with your cool video game friends?
What if they all just, we get the incredible scene of Alisaie moping because she did not get a visual upgrade to go along with her character progression?
Mm-hmm.
We also get one of the greatest lines in FF14, which is, "I could go for a little bit of mayhem."
Yes. While jumping off a balcony and cackling like a maniac. Yeah, I love her.
And then we get the last little bit of teaser for, hey, what's Endwalker gonna be? Well, here's Xenos again, and also here's this weird little gay elf that's inside the body of Asahi.
Here's this little freak.
Your vibes, my lord.
Fan Daniel is the epitome of that Tumblr post that's just does a gay little dance that pisses you off.
I think.
Yeah.
I think Fan Daniel might definitionally be a Scrimblow.
The platonic ideal of a Scrimblow.
I don't know much about him, but him being in Asahi's body and acting like that makes him immediately my least favorite character.
Okay, Fan Daniel is Scrimblow, Xenos is Blorbo from my shows.
Yeah. I love my Blorbo from my shows. Fuck you.
Just like, I'm going to be a little mischief man and cause a lot of problems. And Xenos is like, yes.
Who are you?
Why are you here talking to me?
Xenos is like, did y'all hear something?
Canonically does not know Asahi's name, and that's the exact moment that it gets confirmed where he looks at Fan Daniel and is like, what was her name again?
He's like, don't you remember the body that I'm puppeteering around? And he's like, no,
for some reason I remember some little freak annoying me once, but I don't know.
It's great.
Meanwhile, Asahi is just, soy jacking in hell.
The only thing that I remember is a pissy little doman who just wet his pet.
Oh,
did you at least clean the pants?
Oh, God. So, yeah.
Shadowbringers.
Shadowbringers is the best expansion in the game so far. I can't wait to see what Endwalker brings to the table, because
oh, God.
Holy shit, Shadowbringers brought a lot.
It is legitimately crazy to me to have gone with all of this, with, having been told multiple times, you've got to play Final Fantasy XIV. And I'm like, okay, how good could it possibly be? I am willing to admit I was wrong. It is exactly that good, actually, as it turns out.
It tricks you into thinking it's bad for the first 100 hours, and then only okay for like the next 200 hours.
There's like a spike of like quality with Heavensward, because Heavensward is still extremely good.
And then you get to Stormblood, and you're like, "Oh, this is okay. I guess why are we sending these refugees to the salt
mines?
I don't remember greenlighting this."
It's literally you get that amazing high from Heavensward, and you just kind of ride it out through Stormblood, and hope to God that this roller coaster will drop eventually, because just this very slow incline's getting really fucking boring. Oh, there's Shadowbringers again.
Oh god!
You round a curve the Shadowbringers, and then you're like looking ahead at the track, and like, wait a minute, that's not Euclidean geometry. Oh god! Oh god!
Oh god! Oh fuck! And that's Endwalker. That's what Endwalker is on the roller coaster. It's like, do you want to ride a roller coaster through an M.C. Escher painting?
Endwalker's like, hey, what if you can't see the track ahead of you, and it's not because you went into a dark cave, it's just because the track disappears.
Whatever you think is going to happen in Endwalker, no, you don't.
What happened here? The track isn't there. No, it's there. It's just invisible. Have fun, idiot.
Natsuko Ishikawa was like, the track is there. This roller coaster will conclude. You do not get the luxury of knowing ahead of time how the fuck it's going to conclude.
It's just Mr. Bones' Wild Ride, but the sign says the ride will end.
What if you had Mr. Bones' Wild Ride, but against the initial concept, it's like, no, this roller coaster is going at 500 miles an hour.
Like I said, it's that roller coaster that's designed to euthanize you.
Yeah.
It's increasingly tighter loops until eventually the G-forces rob you of oxygen to your brain, and you just die like that. It's fine. That's Endwalker.
That's just how I go.
That's just how it go.
I don't know, if I rode the euthanasia coaster, I'd simply handle it.
That's what Zeno says.
Xeno's my beloved.
Xeno's like, you think I'll be killed by something that's just a force? I'm a force.
Fuck. We have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We have a problem, people.
What is that?
The Shadowbringers episode was 3 hours long.
It was 3 hours long.
That's just how I go.
And Endwalker is at least 1.5 Shadowbringers.
To mention it for context, Ben, Endwalker's like, hey, we decided that, we just need to wrap up the story and not do, a 5.1, 5.2, 5.3 like we do with Shadowbringers. So what if we did Shadowbringers and 5.1 and 5.2 and 5.3, and that was just everything that was there when the game came out?
Oh, that's very convenient of them to do that.
It's extremely a lot. It rules.
So it cuts off. So, when you get to the end of Endwalker, there's not going to be an epilogue series. It's just a whole ass new thing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But that does mean you got all of that epilogue inside of the expansion pack, and they didn't shrink it down. So there's an extra 30 to 40 hours in there.
It's so much, and I love it, mind you. It's extremely good, but it does mean that Endwalker might be 2 episodes. Oh god.
It's a DLC where it's like, well, this is an area, and it has a level range of 2, and there's 1 dungeon. And you're like, okay, so it'll be short, right? And then there's just silence, like, so it'll be short, right?
No, fuck you. I rules.
You fell for Ishikawa's Wild Ride once more.
She tricked you again, idiot!
And I still got all these alliance raids.
Yeah,
we haven't done the trials yet.
I say we haven't even talked, even though it's Shadowbringers content, we still haven't talked about Bozia or trial series. I probably not going to be talking about Bozia by the time we do Endwalkers, because that's a whole time commitment. But we didn't do Eden yet for Ben, and we didn't do the weapons yet for Ben, and those things both kick ass. So maybe we will address them when we come back for the Endwalker cast.
There's gonna be 2 micro episodes. There's gonna be
either that, or I suppose they could come up in the wrap ups ahead of time. But
we'll see.
But yeah.
Is there anything else we want to get out of our system? Now is the time to say your piece about Shadowbringers, folks.
Fuck that shoe bill. Why is it there?
Because
it's Emet-Selch.
No, it's not.
Oh,
we know it's not.
We know it's also, but I do have to get this out of my system right now. Tanking Amarot is like having an anxiety attack in a video game. I hated it. Never make me do that again.
I'll do it again.
Well, it's not it's not Emet-Selch now, but it was sometimes.
At point, it was Emet-Selch, and at some point, I'm going to run Amarot again to get my shoe bill minion. But
we're going to spend the free company money on getting Sara a shoe bill minion.
That is what we're going to have to do.
That's what we're going to have to do. I'm not going to run that dungeon a lot because I'll die.
Crack open my wallet and shell out money for it again, just like every other outfit.
Just buy a shoe bill. Buys a shoe bill. Yeah, that's all I wanted to get out of my system is that I hate Amarot. The dungeon, not the location. That's good. The dungeon, not so much. Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
My last Shadowbringer opinion is that Gia is the best, and if she wasn't living in the first, I think we should make her a Scion.
I agree.
100% agreed.
Yeah.
Eventually, we gotta complain about the near stuff, but that'll be another time, I think.
Oh God.
I will just go ahead and take a moment to repeat my very favorite line of hers, which is like, "Hey, let me get you some drinks. I know you're not much of a drinker, so 6, 7 ales."
Best character.
She's the best.
Oh God.
All right.
Who drinks wine with dinner?
She's such a fucking gremlin.
So we didn't even talk about the dwarves. There's not a lot to say. The dwarves are good. They're Lalafell.
It's insanely funny because in the source, Lalafels invented racism against beast tribes, and the first Lalafell are a beast tribe.
It's great. I love them. I love their little helmets and their little design. They're good. That's it.
Lolly, goddamn their ugly beards, ho.
Lolly, goddamn their ugly beards, ho.
Last line. We're doomed!
We're doomed! Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right. That'll be it. Thank you, Oats and Saturn, for joining us. Thank you to Mr. Fuse for background music. You can follow me on Twitter at thegorgepodcast. You can follow Sarah at radioinactivity. You can email us at thegorgepodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to listen to Sarah and Saturn talk, you can listen to their other podcasts.
Hey, we're in another podcast called Big Gay Nerds, where me and Saturn and some other cool queer friends get together when we play tabletop games. We try out different systems. Right now, we're playing Masks, a new generation, where we play as young superheroes trying to make their way in the world. And it's good. It's one of our favorite games.
If you like Grahatia, consider the Pink Panzer.
Consider Pippa, our podcast mascot at this point. He's a good little boy. You can find Big Gay Nerds wherever you get your podcasts. Saturn, tell us where we can find you on the internet.
You can find me at The Future Rules on both Twitter and Tumblr. If you want to see the things that I just want people to look at, then follow me on Tumblr. But if you actually want to interact with me or like know things about my life or anything like that, then find me on Twitter, where I also just share things that I want people to see, but do occasionally talk with people.
Oats, tell people where they can find you if you are so inclined.
You can probably find me on Twitter. I'm usually talking to Sara at radioinactivity. Mine is going to be at McGrotes, McGrotes.
Great.
All right.
Is that everything?
That'll do it for us. This one's easy. Fuck Ranjit.
The
worst character.
It's the worst character in Shadowbringers. Brings the whole expansion pack down.
I do like that he is a Reaper, though. That was fun foreshadowing.
That
I
is
actually
cool.
expected that.
Yeah, because Reapers don't show up until Endwalker, so Ranjit is like a proto.
I forget. Do we have to pick different people, or can we?
Oh no,
all
it's just the universe. Yeah. It's just the one.
Okay, yeah, fuck Ranjit.
Unless you have something else you want to say in that case.
I mean, I will give an honorable mention to fuck Vothri. I'm glad that bitch is dead. But mostly fuck Ranjit.
Yeah,
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Everything bad in Final Fantasy is Ranjit's fault. Anyway, bye.
It is correct.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.